Chapter 1276. The mission had succeeded, but the final result was death. This was definitely not the result that Charlotte wanted, but he did not regret it. If he had to choose again, he would still come here and risk his life. The reason was simple. He had no other choice. If he did nothing and stayed at home to enjoy the happiness of his wife and children, his final result would be death, and that time was close. So, no matter how dangerous it was, he had to fight and give it his all. Man proposes, God disposes. Even if he failed, there was nothing to regret or complain about. Do you have anything to say? Isatab's voice was calm. It won't be that easy for you to eat me, Charlotte said. You better not break your teeth. Right, do you have any teeth? Isatab's lips curled into a cold smile. Charlotte straightened his body and pulled his shoulders in. The equipment bag on his back slid off his back. Against an opponent like Isatab, all the weapons and ammunition in the equipment bag were useless. He could only rely on the power of his brand. Crash! The power of the brand in his body was awakened, and the energy field was suddenly released. Without the interference and suppression of the ability to refine, the sudden release of the energy field shattered the clothes on his body. The glass shards embedded in his back were all squeezed out. The shards on his clothes danced in the air and floated down. Xiaolei's body had lost all concealment, and he was completely open. His body was slender and well-proportioned. The lines of his muscles were firm and beautiful, and his masculinity was off the charts. His body was probably the most beautiful human body. It was flawless no matter from which angle one looked at it. Especially the part that represented a man, it gave people a visual impact. It was not because of its size, but because it looked like a work of art carved out of fine jade. There was a reason why so many women liked him. Xiaolei's sudden action caused Isatabu to be slightly stunned. Her deep blue eyes also flashed with a trace of surprise, and even a trace of envy. Yes, envy. At her level of evolution, her body had disappeared, and all that was left was a ball of pure energy. She could live for a long time, but she could not feel the warmth of blood or the taste of food. She could not even love someone. When the soul and consciousness were only left with destruction, it was a sin in itself. Charlotte had the same evolution as her, but what had happened to her did not happen to Charlotte. His body still looked so real, and his emotions were still so rich. He was enjoying the best things in the world, while he was powerful. What happened to you? Isatab asked for the third time. A middle finger appeared in Isatab's sight. This was the answer that Charlotte had given her. Actually, even if Isatab knew the answer, she wouldn't be able to do what Xiaolei did because she had already lost her body. She couldn't drink milk like that. In such a situation, it would be useless even if she created clothes and put them on again. After all, they were just clothes and not her real body. The universe had given every life its imprint. Once you put on clothes, the imprint of the clothes could not be erased. In other words, there were at least two brands in a piece of clothing. She couldn't completely remove the brand of someone else, but the brand belonged to the original owner of the body. Would a normal person become stronger by drinking milk? Obviously not. This was also the reason why her strength would decrease after she put on the clothes. No matter how well-fitting the clothes were, they were still just clothes. But even so, Charlotte would not reveal this secret to Isatab because he did not know what kind of situation Isatab's people were in. If this secret spread to the world of her people, it might make those demons stronger. Looking at Charlotte's middle finger in the air, Isatabu's voice turned cold. Don't think I can't do it. I'll eat you. When you're weak to a certain extent, nothing can protect the secrets in your brain. Come on, cut the crap, Charlotte said. Isatab's body suddenly disappeared from a void. Charlotte's eyes lost sight of Isatab's figure, but his energy field almost instantly captured Isatab's existence. His brain also simulated the real image based on the information transmitted by the power of the brand. Strangely, this time, Isetabu did not charge at him as crazily as before. Instead, it slowly and silently approached him. Her feet did not move at all. As she floated in the air, she slowly raised her arms and strangled his neck. This scene gave him a creepy feeling. At this moment, Isatab was acting like a female ghost in a horror film. Although Isatab's speed was very slow, the two of them were only a few meters apart. In the blink of an eye, Isatab had already forced her way in front of Charlotte. Charlotte suddenly punched Isatab's lower abdomen. He suddenly made a move, and Isatab, who was about to choke him, was unable to dodge his attack. His fist fiercely slammed into Isatab's lower abdomen. Not only his fist, but also the power of the brand wrapped around it. Poof! A very soft sound like a soap bubble bursting came from between Charlotte's fist and Isatab's lower abdomen. It was also with that soft sound that Isatab's energy body flew back. Crash! A large glass container was smashed. The blood-colored liquid in the glass container did not have time to flow out before it was frozen into ice and fell to the ground. The blood-colored ice hit the ground with a dull thud. Isatab's energy body hovered in the air. She looked at Charlotte in shock. This was the first time Charlotte had beaten her back. Charlotte was actually also stunned. He did not expect this kind of result. In fact, this was also the first time he had wrapped the power of the brand around his fist and used it to attack a target. All this while, other than the two special enemies, Isitabu and Keja Ruiz, his enemies were all humans with flesh and blood. He did not even need to fight with his body. He could solve all his problems with his gun. When facing opponents like Isatab and Keja Ruiz, he did not even have the chance to attack. Therefore, his use of the brand energy was too simple. Most of it was used for praying, hypnosis, X-ray vision, and so on. He almost did not use it in combat. Therefore, the use of the brand energy in combat was almost a blank to him. This time, Isatab forced him into a desperate situation again. The brand energy that had been suppressed and interfered with suddenly exploded, shattering his clothes. It was that shattering that gave him an idea. Itethabu was not afraid of any physical attacks. What about energy collisions? Against an enemy who used a gun, at least the weapon should be a gun. If you rushed forward with a knife, you would be seeking death. Similarly, against an enemy who is pure energy like Isatab, at least the weapon should be an energy attack. Using any other weapon would also be seeking death. Therefore, with this idea, Charlotte almost instinctively mobilized the brand energy in his body, wrapped it around his fist, and punched Isatab hard. The result was like this. The enemy who couldn't even fight back in the past was actually sent flying by a single punch from him. This punch gave Charlotte confidence. All along, he had been threatened by Isatab and Keja Ruiz. He was under the threat of death. Now, he seemed to have found a way to fight back and a glimmer of hope. I told you just now. Charlotte blew on his fist. My mouth is big. Your mouth is small. Can you eat it? Isatab deactivated her invisible state and revealed a faintly glowing energy body. She looked at Charlotte and spoke with a tone of disdain. You got lucky and hit me. Has your confidence swelled to such an extent? Then let me show you my true strength. As her voice fell, it reverberated in the blood-colored space. Her body condensed into a spear that flew over furiously. In an instant, it broke through the space between the two of them and stabbed in front of Xiaolei. Charlotte was shocked and dodged to the side, but he was still slightly slower than Isatab. He avoided the vital parts of his chest, but his shoulder was cut open and blood flowed. Isatab's energy spear collided with the wall, and with a loud bang, a hole appeared in the thick concrete wall. It was the light of the moon. This time, Isatab's attack was like a cannonball. The wound on Charlotte's shoulder stopped bleeding and healed quickly. This situation was beyond his expectations. Maybe it had something to do with drinking milk, but now was not the time to think about this. From the attack, just now, he could feel how determined Isatab was to kill him. Before the dust settled, Isatab's pure energy body appeared in the air again. The next second after she appeared, her energy body suddenly split into four, and each part condensed into a spear, which then shot towards Xiaolei. Her energy body was intact after being blown up, so she could split her energy body into several parts. For spears, for different directions, Charlotte had almost no space to dodge, and the spears formed by Isatab were second only to the speed of bullets. They were extremely fast. Just as the four spears suddenly moved, Charlotte's feet stomped on the ground. The ground trembled, and his legs seemed to be equipped with springs. With a whoosh, he flew to the side. Rumble. The four energy spears hit the ground, and four large holes appeared in the reinforced concrete floor. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Charlotte's body smashed through a few large glass containers before stopping. This was the first time he wrapped the branding power around his legs and jumped. It was also the first time he experienced the feeling of being a flying bird. The branding power strengthened his legs, and when he landed on the ground, it was like he had grown a pair of wings on his back. Chapter 1277. The four long spears combined into one in the void. Aisitabu's pure energy body suddenly condensed into a ball and flew towards Xia Lei with a whoosh. His body moved horizontally again. With the experience from the first time, he was more skilled and calm. Just as Aisitabu was about to attack him, his legs began to move. The feeling of having springs under his feet and wings on his back made him extremely excited. Almost everyone dreamed of becoming a bird and flying, and he had almost achieved that dream. Although he didn't have real wings, his jumping ability was incredible. Kaboom! Aistab smashed another hole in the floor. The moment he hit the floor, the whole building shook. If this continued, she might destroy the whole building. How long are you going to hide? You claim to be the strongest person in the world. You should lead the world to a real battle with me. Aisitabu appeared. She was getting impatient. Xia Lei's line of sight shifted to the oval-shaped space, where the energy bar stood quietly on the pagoda-shaped platform. Aistab suddenly realized something, and she rushed toward the oval-shaped space. Almost at that moment, Charlotte moved. His feet landed heavily on the ground, and his body shot toward the broken window like a cannonball. He looked at the energy pillar in the oval-shaped space. In fact, he wanted to give Aistab the illusion that he wanted to destroy the energy pillar. His real goal was to fly out of this building and escape to the opposite building's sky platform. The two buildings were 50 meters apart. One was 50 stories tall, and the other was 30. He jumped from the 50th floor of this black building to the opposite building's sky platform. It was like jumping from 20 floors to the ground. Such a thing, if it was in the past, would simply be an act of suicide, but now he dared to do it. The reason was very simple. Because of the power of the brand, it was equivalent to giving his feet a pair of springs, and on his back, a pair of invisible wings. Aistab thought he was going to destroy the energy stick, so she rushed into the oval-shaped space first. She had a precious chance to escape. Bang! Just as Charlotte's body was about to leap through the hole in the window to escape, he suddenly hit something. That thing was soft, but surprisingly elastic. Her body bounced back and fell heavily to the ground. A slender, glowing white body of pure energy appeared in the void of the window. It was Aisitabu, who looked like a cute anime girl. She did not rush into the oval space. You're cunning, but I've known you for so long. Do you think I don't know what you're up to? Charlotte, sometimes I know you better than you know yourself. Charlotte got up from the ground. He had nothing to say to Aisitabu. She had become a bigger headache for him than Kasha Ruiz. At least Kasha Ruiz had never teased him like this. I'm going to eat you. I want everything in your head. This time, I won't let you escape, Aisitabu said. Xia Lei had already concentrated the power of the brand in his body on the parts that needed to be strengthened, his feet and his back. His legs were strengthened for jumping, while his back was strengthened for crashing. But at that moment, the blood-colored ice on the ground suddenly melted. It did not melt completely, just a little, just enough for water to form on the blood-colored ice. Sprinkling water on the ice would make it very slippery. Once water was sprinkled on the ice, even the best skaters would not be able to move on the ice. Aisitabu laughed. Charlotte, aren't you good at jumping? Give it a try. I want to see if you can still jump like a frog. In his heart, Xia Lei had already cursed her and all the female relatives in her family. When she was still Zhu Xinyue, she was so innocent and cute, like a pure child. But now, she had become a complete demon. No, she was even more cunning than a demon. Uncle Xia, be a good girl and don't move. Wait for me to eat you, okay? Why don't you go die? Charlotte said. Isatab suddenly moved. This time, he did not condense into the shape of a weapon. Instead, he pounced directly at Charlotte. His speed was still as fast as before, second only to the form of a spear. Objects of different shapes would travel at different speeds. For example, an umbrella would not travel faster than a spear. So, changing one's energy body into a specific shape would allow one to move faster. This was the AE energy skill that Isatab had mastered, and Charlotte would never be able to learn this skill because he could not change the shape of his body. Turning himself into a spear or an arrow would allow him to move faster. But all of this was just a thought in Charlotte's mind. He had no time to analyze Isatab's skill. When Isatab suddenly pounced at him, he instinctively jumped to the side. Bang! The moment his feet, imbued with the power of branding, landed on the ground, Charlotte's feet slipped. He lost his balance and fell heavily to the ground. Without waiting for him to dodge again, Isatab had already pounced on him and tangled with him. Get out of my way! Charlotte punched Isatab's head, but this punch was unable to pull her away from his body. Her arms and legs were like double-sided glue wrapped around his body. They were inseparable. Isatab grunted after being punched in the head. Then, she used her head to slam into Charlotte's head. Bang! Charlotte's head slammed into the ground. The violent concussion almost made him faint. Before she could make another movement, Isatab's small mouth pressed against his lips. Her lips were very soft. There was no moisture in them, but they gave off a very smooth feeling. They were also very cold. The temperature was no different from ice. She's eating me with her mouth? This thought popped into Charlotte's mind. This thought sent chills down his spine. It was also at that moment that he suddenly felt the power of the brand in his brain being sucked out. Fear was born in his brain and then spread throughout his body. You can't escape. You're mine. Do you know that? I only use my mouth when I'm enjoying the best food. Isatab's mouth was clearly in a rush to eat him, but she could still make a clear sound. When she treated him as the best, Charlotte did not know whether to feel honored or sad. He looked at the destroyed window. At this time, he wished that his father, Xia Changhe, would appear and save him from danger. Even Kasha Ruiz would do, even if he would die by his hand. If he had to choose how he would die, he would rather die on the battlefield or even on a woman. He would not die like this, being eaten alive by Isatab. Do you know that you taste good? Isatab's voice was full of mockery. If you have to describe it as a food in your world, I think milk powder is the most suitable. Perhaps because he had eaten too much milk, even his body and the branding power inside him tasted like milk. Whether this was the reason, Charlotte did not know. He had never studied this before, and he would not do so in the future. He had hoped that his father, Xia Changhe, would appear, or even Kasha Ruiz, but neither of them had appeared. This was not the plot of a novel. When the protagonist was in danger, there would always be a savior who would appear and save the protagonist. This was the real world. If he wanted to live, he had to rely on his own fists. However, his body was suppressed, and he could not move. The branding power in his body was being devoured by Isatab bit by bit. She was eating him, but she was still making sarcastic remarks about the smell of milk. Could he still hope that this terrifying enemy would let him go? Absolutely not. No matter what, he still had to rely on himself to survive. However, he could not even get up. How could he break free from Isatab's restraints and escape? Suddenly, the corner of Xia Lei's eyes landed on Isatabu's perky butt. That plump and perky, but immediately gave him a crazy thought. His hands and feet couldn't move, but there was one place he could move. Isatab was eating him, killing him in a terrifying way. At the same time, she was teasing and humiliating him. Why did she not hurt and humiliate him? Using a man's God-given object, God-given method. I'm about to break open your brain. It can't protect your brain anymore. All the secrets in your brain will be mine soon. Isetabu's voice was mocking and insulting. I'm going to break open your brain soon. It can't protect your brain anymore. The it she was talking about was obviously referring to the power of branding, but she called it energy. Charlotte struggled with all his might. His waist could move slightly, but he was not completely restrained. Even though he could only move a little, it was enough for him. Isatab laughed coldly. Struggling is useless. Your energy is not as strong as mine. Just obediently accept your fate. But this is not a fate that Kasha Ruiz gave you, but a fate that I gave you. Don't think that I won't kill you because you're the chosen one. For my people and our mission, I have a million reasons to kill you. Her voice was still echoing in this space when Xia Lei suddenly straightened his waist. Chapter 1278. 1 second later. With a scream, Istab's mouth left Charlotte's lips. Her small mouth formed in zero shape. With her extraordinarily large eyes and small nose, her face suddenly became a fascinating picture. Charlotte moved again. No! Istab roared. She suddenly raised her fists and smashed them into Charlotte's chest. Xia Lei's chest let out a muffled thump, and an intense pain came, almost causing him to pass out. But it was only pain and shock. His bones and organs were not damaged. With Istab's attack, he suddenly realized that Istab had become very unstable. She was not as strong as before. Such a thing seemed inconceivable, but if one were to analyze it carefully, it was inevitable. The reason was simple. Istab was a pure energy body. She was clean and pure. But after that thing entered her body, her purity disappeared. Not only that, there was something else in her pure energy body, and its structure became unstable. This kind of thing was nothing to a normal woman. Never mind once, even 100 times would not be a problem. But to Isatab, it was fatal. Not only did Xia Lei's invasion destroy the balance of her pure energy body, it also brought her emotional impact, the impact of desire and the intense stimulation of her senses. And these things were precisely what she couldn't have or experience. His father had once told him that in order to improve his evolution, he had to abandon all emotions. He had to become cold and emotionless. He had to reach the point where no matter how important his family and friends were, he had to kill them without hesitation. At that time, he had scoffed at his father's words. He had even suspected that his father was exaggerating. But now he realized that his father was telling the truth. Once he evolved into a pure energy body, the stimulation of his senses and desire, which were very good for normal people, would become a fatal virus. But to Charlotte, this feeling was unprecedented. It was extremely novel. He was like a deer deep in a two-dimensional world. He jumped on the soft grass and swam in the spring under the cold moonlight. Sometimes he even felt like a bee, greedily picking nectar. Her body was like a magical world, a world filled with all kinds of unknown things. Every time he delved deeper into it, it would bring him a new and wonderful feeling. It was to the point where he had the illusion that he and Isatab's soul were one. In fact, this was not an illusion. Isatabu was a body of pure energy. In a sense, she was a soul without a body. He had done that to her, so of course his soul had merged with hers. No, no, Istab roared. Her fists rained down on Charlotte's chest and face. Xia Lei's chest turned into a drum as she pounded on it. His face was also bruised and swollen from her beating. He looked like a pig's head and was no longer handsome. But Charlotte gritted his teeth and persevered. He used the branding power in his body to resist, to prevent his organs and brain from being damaged. At the same time, he held on to Istab tightly. He did not want her to escape. Under normal circumstances, if Istab wanted to dodge, she would disappear in a whoosh. But this time, she could not do it. Her pure energy body was unstable. She could not control it. She could only use her fists to hit Charlotte like a normal woman. But her strength was getting weaker and weaker, and her body was getting more and more chaotic. Xia Lei's assault on her was really like the invasion of an influenza virus. After a person was infected with the influenza virus, their body would feel weak and dizzy. No matter how strong a person was, they would also fall down, and even walking would be a problem. That was her situation. Before, she was full of energy and wanted to eat Charlotte. But now, She was like a weak girl facing a pervert alone. Aissa Dabu's fists were still stubbornly pounding on Xia Lei's chest, face, and head, but the sounds she made were getting softer and softer. What scared her even more was that her body of pure energy actually had a temperature. Charlotte did not let go of her. If this could kill Aistab, he would continue even if it cost him his life. Without Aistab, there would not be the Hellhound virus. There would not be others like her coming to this world to hunt. His wife and children would also live in peace. Even without him, it was better than being eaten, right? A few minutes later, Aistab was completely quiet. She did not struggle anymore. Charlotte was the opposite. He was in a state of vigor. He did not stop his invasion of Aistab. He could feel her pure energy body getting warm. Meanwhile, under that miraculous temperature, her pure energy body was slowly thinning, becoming fainter and fainter. Will she really die? Then die, Charlotte said in his heart. Thinking of the suffering she had brought into this world and the things she had done to him, he did not feel any pity. He did not just want to kill her. He wanted the secret in her brain. The branding power wrapped around Aistab and captured her brain waves. The confused Aistab could not stop Charlotte's invasion. Her brain was like a room, and Charlotte opened the door with a key. An image appeared in Charlotte's brain. It was a brown planet. There was no blue ocean, no dense forest. Giant mountains and deserts made up everything. It was huge, 100 times the size of Earth, but there was no life. Is that her home? A thought appeared in Charlotte's heart. The image suddenly changed, and a girl entered the image in his brain. She was running desperately in a canyon, but she couldn't see anything chasing her from behind. She looked like a frightened bird, and she kept running. Charlotte adjusted his thoughts, and the girl's face appeared more clearly in his simulation. Her eyes were surprisingly big, and the dark blue and black pupils looked so special. And her small nose and mouth. Wasn't that Aistab? Why was she running? Was something chasing her? A black flying object appeared in the canyon. It was shaped like a plate, and its surface was very smooth. Is that a flying saucer? Is the flying saucer that the ancients left on the rock paintings the reason why Aistab appeared with a flying saucer? Charlotte's brain was torn apart. In Charlotte's imagination, the young Aistab stumbled to the side of the black flying object. The hatch opened downward and turned into a spiral staircase that led upward. Without the slightest hesitation, she rushed forward in one breath. After she went up, the hatch closed automatically, and the image in Charlotte's brain turned into the image of the inside of the flying object. The interior of the flying object was very spacious. There was a cockpit and some equipment of unknown use. One of the capsule-shaped equipment looked like a hibernation chamber in sci-fi movies. However, that was only Charlotte's guess based on the shape and not the answer. The big-eyed girl fell into the cockpit. She muttered to herself, "Dead. They're all dead. Why? Why? Why do they do this to us?" A synthesized voice appeared in the cockpit. It used the same language as the big-eyed girl, which was the language of the bronze grimoire. "Master, the vanilla is on standby. Do you want to take off?" "Take off. Set the coordinates." The big-eyed girl crawled up from the ground. A 3D star chart appeared in front of her. Stars shone brightly in the void, and nebulae shone brightly. The 3D star chart moved continuously, and one galaxy after another passed by. It was a dazzling sight. Charlotte was sure that the galaxies that passed by in a flash had never appeared in the history of astronomy, and those galaxies were unreachable by humans. After a flash, the star chart suddenly stopped. The big-eyed girl used her white finger to point at a blue planet. At first glance, Charlotte's heart trembled. That was Earth. The big-eyed girl's voice sounded. "Give me the information on this small planet." The synthesized voice sounded. "Apologies, Master. This is a very primitive planet. There is no relevant information." Rumble. A huge explosion suddenly sounded, and the disc-shaped flying object suddenly shook violently. The girl panicked. "It's here! It's here! Take off quickly! Set the coordinates!" The disc-shaped flying object let out a rumbling sound. The big-eyed girl's legs swayed a little, but she stabilized herself after a long time. However, at this moment, a white light blossomed in the cockpit. A hand suddenly shot out a white light and grabbed the big-eyed girl's neck. Then, a shiny mineral powder-like substance was stuffed into the big-eyed girl's mouth. The shiny mineral powder-like substance melted in the blink of an eye and entered the big-eyed girl's body. A strange voice came from the white light. It was a man's voice. It was deep and mysterious, and it had a penetrating power. However, Charlotte had no idea what he was saying. It was a language he had never come into contact with before. The white light disappeared, but it was not the white light that disappeared from the disc-shaped flying object. Instead, it was the big-eyed girl who had fainted. Charlotte did not know what the man had done, nor did he know what happened next. This was because Isotab's memory ended there. Perhaps it was because he was nervous, or perhaps it was because he wanted Isotab to die, but when the white light disappeared, Charlotte's body trembled a few times and then stopped. The terrifying memory of Isotab was interrupted, and so was he. Just as Charlotte was about to steal more memories and devour her, Isotab suddenly opened her big eyes. Chapter 1279. Xiaolei thought that Isotabu had fainted, so when she suddenly opened her eyes, he was shocked. His plan to devour her also came to an abrupt end. Isotabu's feet suddenly stomped on the ground, breaking free from the restraints of the summer lightning, and rushed into the oval space. Charlotte got up from the ground and chased after her. Isotabu was already poisoned and confused. This was a golden opportunity to kill her. How could he let it go? Charlotte rushed to the door of the oval space, but he didn't see Isotab. The energy bar on the tower suddenly fell down, disappearing from his sight in the blink of an eye. He suddenly realized something, turned around, and ran toward the broken window. When he got close to the broken window, he kicked the ground hard, and his whole body flew out of the window. Kaboom! The sound of a violent explosion came from behind him, followed by a terrifying shockwave and a scorching heat wave that rushed over his head. Although he avoided the shockwave of the explosion, Xiaolei's back was still burned, and he felt a burning pain. But he couldn't care less. His body was falling rapidly from the sky, and the rooftop of the 30-story building was getting closer and closer. He was getting more and more nervous. After all, even if he had mastered the super jump ability given by the power of branding, it would still require sufficient courage to jump down from a 50-story building. Boom! Charlotte's feet hit the rooftop of the opposite building, and his body instantly curled into the shape of a shrimp, rolling on the rooftop. Using this method, he counteracted the deadly impact. Of course, the most important thing was the energy of the brand in his body. Without the protection of the brand, even if he turned into a ball, he would still be smashed into a meat patty. He was probably the only person in the world who could jump from such a high place and still be alive. Kaboom! The black building opposite had another violent explosion, and it wasn't just once but several times in a row. A huge amount of energy was released, and the black building collapsed. Smoke and dust rose into the air, covering a part of the sky. That girl, she deliberately created the illusion that she was going to rush into the elliptical space to take away the energy bars, luring me to chase after her. However, she compressed her energy body and escaped through the cracks in the floor, then dropped the energy bar on the tower platform and detonated the building. In order to kill me, she didn't hesitate to blow up the base she worked so hard to build. Her desire to kill me is really harder than steel. Looking at the cloudless sky full of dust, the corners of Xia Lei's mouth could not help but form a bitter smile. After this battle and that incident, he knew that there was no turning back between him and Isotabu. However, he was not worried that Isotab would harm his wife and children, because he had an agreement with Kasha Ruiz to protect his wife and children. That agreement was still in effect. More importantly, after this battle, he was no longer that afraid of Isotab. If she appeared in front of him again, he dared to fight her head-on. "I'll come for you." Isotab's voice suddenly came from the ruins covered in dust. "No one can do that to me. Charlotte, I'm going to kill you. Kill you." Xiaolei climbed up from the rooftop, then rushed to the edge of the rooftop and looked down. His gaze pierced through the rolling dust, fire, and smoke, but he saw nothing. "Do you want to do it again?" Charlotte shouted at the smoking ruins. "Then come." Isatab didn't respond. She only left that threat and didn't make another sound. Xiaolei secretly said in his heart, "She must have left. I did that to her. Not only did I destroy the structure of her energy body, but I also contaminated it. This is a serious injury for her. She will probably need some time to recover. In this period of time, I have to work hard to become stronger." Naturally, his analysis had a credible basis. That basis was that if Isetabu hadn't been injured and was still alive and kicking, she definitely wouldn't have escaped with the energy bar. She would only have done one thing, and that was to kill him. She ran away pathetically and even destroyed the Black Moon Army's production base that she had painstakingly built. This was enough to prove that she was injured, and it was a serious injury. Although the way she defeated Isatab for the first time was not something that could be seen in public, it still gave Charlotte confidence and hope. His mood improved as well. Footsteps came from behind him. Charlotte quickly turned around and reached out to cover that part of his body. Under the gentle moonlight, Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixin peeked their heads out from the staircase. They were also looking at him with a surprised and special gaze. He seemed to have covered it a little too slowly, and the two Korean beauties saw that part that shouldn't have been seen. It was also after this speculation that he saw Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao's eyes glowing slightly. Then they walked toward him. "Mr. Xiao, what happened?" Song Yinxiao asked as she walked. Her expression was a little nervous. "Nothing. The building collapsed," Charlotte said. This was the simplest explanation he could think of. Even so, he actually didn't want to give such an explanation. "Mr. Xia, your clothes, where did they go?" Quan Zixin probed. She seemed to be more interested in this matter. Her gaze also lingered on a certain part of Charlotte's body. Her curious and surprised gaze seemed to want to see through the back of Charlotte's hand and see what she wanted to see again. "That was destroyed in the explosion," Charlotte said. The two Korean beauties looked at Charlotte strangely. They clearly didn't believe Charlotte's words. It was said that big breasts have no brains, but even if their breasts were big, their brains weren't stupid at all. Charlotte said that his clothes were destroyed in the explosion, but he was standing here perfectly fine. Was this normal? Charlotte turned around, revealing his scarred back to the two Korean women. He said, "See, my back is injured." Charlotte's back was full of wounds caused by the glass shards and burns caused by the explosion. Although his body had a certain self-healing ability, it wouldn't be that fast. Right now, there was no bleeding and there were no signs of infection. Therefore, his back still looked very scary. So scary. Quan Zixin covered her small mouth. Song Yinxiao was also shocked. She said nervously, "Mr. Xia, quickly go back with us. We'll treat it for you. Otherwise, the wound will get infected." It was no wonder that they were so nervous. Charlotte was their life-saving straw. If Charlotte died or lost his ability to fight, they wouldn't be able to leave this place alive. Therefore, they were more concerned about Charlotte's health than themselves. Charlotte wanted to say something, but stopped. "What?" The two Korean beauties looked at Charlotte with a hint of speculation in their eyes. Charlotte hesitated for a moment before saying, "I've lost all my equipment and clothes. Which one of you can lend me a pair of underwear to wear?" The hero who saved Asia opened his mouth to borrow underwear. If this was a joke, it would definitely be the world's best joke of the year. "I have one." Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao agreed to Charlotte's request at almost the same time. Then, they began to take off their sports shorts at the same time. "I only need one," Charlotte said. "Then wear mine." The voices of the two Korean beauties rang out. Charlotte. Perhaps it was due to shyness. The two Korean beauties turned their backs when they took off their sports bikini shorts. However, when they bent over to take off their sports shorts, their two big white balls were exposed to Xiaolei's field of vision. Moreover, because of their movements, an even more mysterious scenery was revealed without any concealment. Charlotte suddenly didn't know where to look. He was very embarrassed. His lower abdomen also secretly rose up. He almost couldn't control himself and had the urge to pounce on them. However, he managed to control himself in the end. His control over his body had already reached an unimaginable level. Quan Zixian and Song Yin-xiao each handed a sports bikini in front of Charlotte and eagerly waited for him to choose. The two sports bikini shorts carried their own body fragrance, the smell of sweat, and some indescribable and mysterious stains. Facing these two original sports bikini, Charlotte didn't know how to choose. He also had a headache. How about, Mr. Xia, you wear two? Song Yin-xiao seemed to have seen through Charlotte's dilemma and proposed a solution. Several black lines suddenly appeared on Charlotte's forehead. He grabbed the black sports bikini in Quan Zixian's hands. He thought that although it was a sports bikini worn by women, wearing black was definitely better than wearing white, right? If it was white, it would really be too eye-catching. Moreover, it would be a little transparent. Charlotte made his choice, but the two Korean beauties were still staring at Charlotte. Charlotte just let go of his hands and then covered them again. He said awkwardly, "Turn around. How can I wear it if you look at me like that?" The two Korean beauties turned around. Only then did Charlotte put one of his feet into the sports shorts. But at that moment, the two Korean beauties suddenly turned around and stared at him, seeing everything. At that moment, the two women's eyes lit up again. It was comparable to a work of art carved from fine jade. It wasn't something that just any woman could see. The opportunity was right in front of them. How could they miss it? You? Charlotte covered his eyes again. That? I just wanted to see if you need any help. Quan Zixian said. She was wearing pants. How could you help her? Charlotte was too lazy to cover it. He quickly put his other foot into the sports shorts and then pulled it up. Gee, there was a cracking sound. Because it was a women's sports bikini shorts, the size was too small and the material was not strong. Just as Charlotte pulled up the black sports bikini shorts, the back of his buttocks stretched open. Song Yin-xiao handed the white sports bikini shorts to Charlotte. Wear this. It's more elastic. Charlotte, a gust of wind suddenly blew. The short skirts of the two Korean beauties fluttered silently. Charlotte also felt a chill behind his buttocks. With beauties in front of him and his buttocks behind him, he was in a mess. Not good. This was definitely not the treatment a hero should enjoy. Chapter 1280. The light of dawn dispelled the darkness, and the light returned to the land. The city was silent, without any signs of life. Charlotte opened his eyes. After a short nap, his body had returned to normal, and his spirit was in a state of exuberance. The wound on his back had also healed, and all the wounds had scabbed over. He tentatively peeled off a piece of the scar and found that under the scar was white and delicate skin. It didn't look like it had been injured at all. There wasn't even a trace of a scar, let alone a scar. Everything that had happened last night flashed through his mind. The battle with Isotab and the matter with Isotab, as well as the clone and the sack of flesh. All of this seemed so surreal. It felt like a ridiculous dream. He had a dream the entire night, and now he had woken up. This was the feeling. However, when he saw Song Yin-xiao's white sports bikini shorts, Charlotte couldn't help but smile bitterly. This tight white sports bikini shorts were the evidence. As long as it was there, everything that had happened last night wasn't a dream. It brought him back to reality. Charlotte's gaze shifted to Quan Zixian and Song Yin-xiao. They were in front of him and were also sleeping in the corridor. Quan Zixian's back was facing him, and she was lying on her side. The curve of her slender waist and buttocks was perfect from low to high and then from high to low. Her short skirt was pressed under her waist. Rather than saying that it was half covered, it was more like a high-definition, size-free dress. Because there was no cloth from her waist down and no one had gauged her, the snow-white and not-so-snow-white scenery was naturally exposed to the air, and he could look at it however he wanted. Song Yin-xiao, on the other hand, was leaning against the wall of the corridor as she slept. Her head was tilted and her legs were stretched out. If one were to use a ruler to measure the gap between her long, white legs, it would definitely be 45 degrees. However, her short skirt was wrinkled and squeezed together. With Song Yin-xiao like this, what secrets did she have as a woman? A ball of fire ignited in Charlotte's lower abdomen. It was a slowly burning flame that was difficult to extinguish. Every morning was the time when a man was the most energetic. At this time, the stimulated reaction was also strong. Looking at the white sports bikini that was quickly becoming tighter and smaller, Charlotte quickly shifted his gaze. He didn't dare to look anymore. If he did, he wouldn't be able to control the little magical beast in his body. He crawled up from the ground, but did not wake up Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixian. He walked to the other end of the corridor. As he walked, he looked through the rooms on both sides of the corridor. Soon, he found a wardrobe in a lounge on the left. The wardrobe contained some clothes. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile, and he quickly walked over. Wearing a woman's sports bikini shorts and facing two Korean beauties, that kind of thing would always be very embarrassing, and he did not want to walk out like that. If Giovanna and the others saw it, or if someone took a picture of it, his reputation would be ruined here. However, before he reached the door of the lounge, Song Yinxiao's voice came from behind, full of nervousness. "Mr. Xia, are you going to abandon us? Mr. Xia, please don't abandon us." This was Quan Zixian's voice. She was crying. "You promised us we also gave you milk to drink." "Women," Charlotte sighed in his heart. He turned around and said, "I'm just going to find a piece of clothes. After I change, I'll bring you guys out of here. Then we'll watch you change." Song Yinxiao crawled up from the ground. Quan Zixian also crawled up and followed Song Yinxiao nervously. Charlotte smiled bitterly. He walked into the lounge and took out the clothes that he had seen with his X-ray vision from the wardrobe. It was a tennis outfit and a pair of tennis shoes. To be able to have a lounge in such an office building, the owner of this office must be of high status. Nowadays, men with a bit of status and achievements like to play golf and tennis, not just for exercise, but more for socializing. No one knew when it started, but golf and tennis had been labeled as noble sports. Xiaolei took out his tennis clothes, but before he could put them on, Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixian walked in and stared at him, afraid that he would jump out of the window and leave them here. Charlotte smiled bitterly. "I'm really just changing clothes. I won't leave you guys. Can you please leave? Then we won't look." Song Yinxiao turned around, but her eyes were fixed on the glass window of the lounge. Quan Zixian did the same thing and stared at the glass window. On the sunglasses-colored glass window, Charlotte's projection was very clear. The two women seemed to be facing a television, and they were waiting for the start of the midnight program. How could the thoughts of the two Korean beauties deceive Charlotte's golden fiery eyes? With just a glance, he saw the excited and expectant eyes of Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixian behind the glass window. They were waiting for him to take off the dirty white sports bikini shorts. However, even if he knew what they were thinking, Charlotte was too lazy to care. He quickly took off the white sports bikini shorts and threw it to Song Yinxiao. The white sports bikini shorts fluttered in the air twice, and then landed properly on Song Yinxiao's head. "Mr. Xiaoyu." Song Yinxiao grabbed the white sports bikini and looked back at Charlotte. She couldn't find a reason to turn back, so Charlotte's action gave her a reason not to watch the projection, but to watch the live broadcast. "Back to you," Charlotte said, while putting on the pants. He had his back to the two women, so they couldn't see him. The two women immediately frowned. Charlotte quickly dressed himself. He was handsome in tennis clothes, and his tall and straight figure was full of vitality. Finally, he put on the white tennis cap and said, "Let's go. I'll take you out of here now." Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixian came back to their senses and followed Charlotte out. Charlotte glanced at the white sports bikini shorts in Song Yinxiao's hand. Miss Song, why don't you put on? I keep it as a souvenir." Song Yinxiao blushed, and then added with a smile, "Mr. Charlotte, the chairman of Rema Group, has worn my shorts, so this pair of shorts is priceless." Charlotte, she was flattering him well. This was also Song Yinxiao's cleverness. After she left here safely, she would hype it up, and her popularity would soar. Who was Charlotte? Charlotte was the only person in the world who dared to challenge the United States. His reputation was thousands of times higher than those so-called A-list celebrities. If she had a scandal with him, her popularity would soar like a rocket. Charlotte smiled bitterly and said to himself, "When I leave here, I must hypnotize them and make them forget everything that happened." Entering the corridor, Charlotte picked up an M4A1 assault rifle and a few magazines. He also asked Song Yin Xiao and Quan Zixian to take guns and magazines, but he didn't let them take the assault rifle because the recoil was too strong, and he was worried that they wouldn't be able to handle it. If they opened fire, they might accidentally injure him instead of killing the hellhound virus infected who attacked them. Therefore, he chose pistols with less recoil for them to carry. The three of them entered the staircase and walked down. They didn't encounter any hellhound virus-infected people on the staircase, and the journey was smooth until they entered the lobby at the bottom of the building. More than a dozen hellhound virus-infected people suddenly noticed the three of them and swarmed over. Bang, bang, bang. In their nervousness, Song Yin Xiao and Quan Zixian opened fire, but none of the bullets they fired hit their targets. They all hit the floor and walls. The gunshots attracted the hellhound virus-infected people outside, and more of them rushed in through the door. Some especially hungry ones even smashed the windows, stepping on the glass shards as they charged at the three of them. For a moment, the lobby was filled with hellhound virus-infected people, and their numbers were uncountable. Yesterday, there were tens of thousands of hellhound virus-infected people gathered here. After Charlotte destroyed the base of Isotab, the hellhound virus-infected people gathered here had dispersed. However, there were still thousands of hellhound virus-infected people active in the vicinity, and they hadn't gone far. Now, the sudden gunshots had attracted them, and the situation suddenly went out of control. Charlotte's plan was to carefully pass through this central area and then proceed to Incheon Harbor. He didn't expect such a change to happen because of the two women's reckless behavior. In the lobby, the hellhound virus-infected people rushed to the staircase like a tide. Bang, bang, bang. Charlotte also opened fire, 1 shot per person, and not a single bullet was wasted. However, the number of hellhound virus-infected people was too high. He emptied his magazine, but the hellhound virus-infected people's formation did not even slow down for a moment. Roar! A very strong black infected person jumped up and pressed down on Charlotte from the air. Charlotte had finished reloading, but he didn't fire. He faced the black infected person and kicked him. With a bang, the infected person, who weighed at least 180 kilograms, flew toward the group of hellhound virus-infected people like a weightless pillow, knocking down a large number of them. Song Yin Xiao and Quan Zixian stared at Charlotte, dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. It gave them the feeling that Charlotte was not an ordinary person at all, but an Asian version of the Hulk. "Why are you still standing? Hurry up and go up." Charlotte turned around and roared. Only then did Song Yin Xiao and Quan Zixian come to their senses. They turned around and ran up. As they climbed the stairs, their short skirts bounced up and down. Every time they bounced up and down, a large area of plump snow-white skin would be revealed. The scene was too beautiful to look at. The terrifying hellhound virus infected people and the buttocks of beautiful Korean celebrities. The combination of these two elements was really messy. Chapter 1281. The two Korean beauties disappeared around the corner of the staircase. A Korean man charged at Charlotte like a dog. Charlotte kicked in the face. At that moment, it was as if a high-speed pile driver had slammed into the Korean man's face. His face and even his head were deformed and shattered under Charlotte's kick. Pooh! The Korean man's head exploded from the kick. The huge impact sent his corpse flying backward, knocking down a large number of hellhound virus-infected people who had charged forward. Charlotte stood on the staircase, guarding the entrance. Although he was only one person, he gave off an invincible aura of a man who could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. If the battle with Ishitaba last night had allowed him to discover the usage of the branding power in actual combat, then what he was doing now was leveling up. By continuously using the branding power to engage in such high-intensity battles, he was becoming more and more proficient in the usage and control of the branding power. As his understanding of the branding power increased, The number of techniques he had learned also increased. His strength had also increased. Back in the Shangri-La refuge, his father Xia Changhe had used Yelena and Thousand Army as bait to lure him to the snowy mountain, allowing the hellhound virus-infected people to attack him and force him to eat. Back then, he had been unable to deal with the hundreds of hellhound virus-infected people. He had only managed to escape after a desperate battle. But now, he was facing hundreds of hellhound virus-infected people without any fear. There was only one reason. This was the manifestation of his strength increasing. With the increase in strength, his confidence would naturally follow. Now, he even had the guts to forcefully attack Ishitabu, let alone these hellhound virus-infected people. In his eyes, the infected people here were just like ants. He could flatten them with one foot and kill them with one punch. However, these hellhound virus-infected people still gave him a hard time. There were just too many of them. If he killed one, 10 would rush forward. If he killed 10, 100 would rush forward. The hellhound virus-infected people at the back were unable to squeeze forward. They roared impatiently. Their roars were a release of their desire to hunt, but also a signal to summon their own kind. More hellhound virus-infected people rushed over. The lobby at the bottom of the building was packed with people. It was so packed that not even a single inch of air could pass through. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, those infected with the hellhound virus fell at Charlotte's feet, and the pile of corpses at the foot of the stairs grew. Charlotte retreated as he fought. When he reached the corner of the first-floor staircase, the staircase entrance and stairs were already piled with corpses. Corpses blocked the passage, but there were still hellhound virus-infected crawling in through the gaps between the corpses and the floor, trying to take a bite out of him. Charlotte also noticed a strange phenomenon. Some of the starving Cerberus-infected had begun to gnaw on the corpses of their own kind. This was a phenomenon that had never occurred before. Could the hellhound virus have mutated? If that's the case, will these Cerberus virus-infected people mutate again after eating their own kind? Charlotte thought to himself with a heavy heart. At present, countries all over the world were researching vaccines against the Cerberus virus, but no effective vaccine had appeared yet. If the hellhound virus mutated at this time, it would be disastrous for the vaccine research. That was because it meant that the hellhound virus was evolving at an extremely fast rate. With the current technological level of mankind, the speed of vaccine research was far from being able to keep up with the virus's evolution speed. Everything in the universe was evolving, and this kind of evolution was ever-present and imperceptible. Humans were in this category, and viruses were also in this category. In ancient times, there was no such thing as AIDS, but now there was, and this was just an example. Who knew how many dangerous viruses were lurking around us, waiting for an opportunity to erupt? But we have been destroying the environment, giving the deadly virus an opportunity to erupt. Bang, bang, bang. 3 gunshots rang out, and 3 Cerberus virus-infected people who were about to crawl through the gaps between the corpses on the floor were shot dead. Their corpses also blocked the last gap. Phew! Charlotte placed his hands on his knees and let out a long breath. He was very powerful, and if he was placed in the world of comics, he would be a hero. But this kind of continuous battle was too exhausting, and even he was exhausted. Fortunately, the corpses of the Cerberus virus-infected people blocked the entrance. Otherwise, if he continued to fight like this, even if he was not eaten by the Cerberus virus-infected people, he would still be exhausted to death. On the ancient battlefield, no matter how heaven-defying a general's combat power was, he would not be able to defeat an army. But the Cerberus virus-infected people outside were an army, and all of them were not afraid of death. Charlotte's gaze penetrated the corpses blocking the entrance, and he saw the densely packed Cerberus virus-infected people. Some were howling, and some were eating the corpses of their own kind. That scene made his back go numb, and he felt a deep headache. He turned around and went upstairs. He needed a good rest. Quan Zixian and Song Yinxiao squatted at the entrance to the second floor, their faces pale and shivering. Just now, they had watched the battle between Charlotte and the Cerberus virus infected people through the gap between the staircase's handrails. But even the godlike Charlotte could not eliminate the fear in their hearts. There were just too many Cerberus virus-infected people. Xiao Lei sat on the ground and then lay back down. He was truly exhausted and had no strength left in him. In the battle just now, he had not only consumed his physical strength and energy, but also the power of the branding power in his body. The former too could be recovered after a short rest, but the latter needed to be replenished with energy. "Give me something to eat. I'm hungry," Charlotte said. His voice also sounded very tired. Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao then began to rummage through their bags, and then one took out a piece of bread, and the other took out a ham sausage, and uniformly handed them to Charlotte. "Mr. Xia, eat the bread," Quan Zixin said. "Mr. Xia, eat the ham sausage," Song Yinxiao said with a smile, and then added, "I can feed you. Do you need me to feed you?" Charlotte did not reach out his hand. He coughed, "I don't want this kind of food." Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao finally reacted. The two Korean beauties looked at each other and then rushed to lift up their clothes. But when they were looking for a container to hold the milk, they found that the cup was long gone. Without a cup, how could they milk the great Mr. Xia? Quan Zixin looked very embarrassed. "Mr. Xia, there is no suit. You can only drink directly." Drink directly? A corresponding colorful image suddenly appeared in Charlotte's mind, and he did not dare to look at it directly. Until now, the milk he had drunk directly was the milk of the 6 housekeepers at home, and he had never drunk the milk of a woman outside. Was he going to make an exception today? "Mr. Xia, you can drink directly. It's okay, there's no one else here," Song Yinxiao said with a smile. There was indeed no one here, but after saying such words, her face inevitably turned red. For women like Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixin, feeding a man who had been with them for less than 24 hours was easy to imagine the embarrassment in their hearts. But as long as they thought about the densely packed hellhound virus-infected people in the hall downstairs that needed Charlotte to deal with, they had enough courage and motivation to personally feed Charlotte. Charlotte hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he nodded. This was a critical period, and he urgently needed to replenish his energy, so he would just drink directly. After Charlotte nodded, Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao moved closer. One lay on his right side, and the other on his left side, and then they brought their snow-white breasts to his mouth. Charlotte's face was instantly drowned, and he did not know who to eat at all. In the end, he did not care who it was, and he grabbed it and ate it. A strange sound suddenly came from Quan Zixin's throat. It sounded like she was enduring some uncomfortable violation, but there was also a hint of joy in her voice, giving people a contradictory feeling. 2 minutes later, a similar strange sound came from Song Yinxiao's small mouth. The sound was like a cat's cry at a specific time. It was gentle and powerful, making people feel that if she did not release it, they would fall sick. Charlotte did not need to see who he was eating. He only needed to hear the sound and know the answer. However, the answer was not important to him. What was important was that his energy was replenished through this method. He could clearly feel the imprint in his body greedily absorbing the source energy that nourished his life. The more he ate, the more he absorbed, and the more he absorbed, the faster he recovered. "Mr. Xia, you're hurting me." Quan Zixin's voice carried a coquettish tone. "Then let's change to another one," Xiao Lei said. Quan Zixin, more replenishment entered his stomach, and the energy of the imprint in his body quickly recovered. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for it to recover so quickly. The sudden change attracted Charlotte's attention, and he thought to himself, "Before the battle with Sitab last night, I also had the experience of overexerting the power of the imprint. After that, I drank milk, but the recovery speed was not this fast. Why is it so fast this time? Could it be related to last night's battle? Or did my evolution quietly increase after last night's battle? Or was there another reason?" One question after another appeared in Charlotte's mind, but he could not understand what was going on. In a moment, he gave up thinking and used the power of the imprint in his body to check the inside of his body. The power of the imprint flowed through his body. His organs, bones, blood vessels, and corresponding images appeared in his mind. All of his organs were normal, full of vitality and strong functions. His bones and muscles were also normal, and they were extremely tough and terrifyingly strong. The results of the examination seemed normal, but when it came to the brain, it was not normal. Chapter 1282. The power of branding was a name that Charlotte came up with based on his understanding of the mysterious energy in his body. It was actually the same thing as the AE energy that Isotab called it. Due to the difference in culture and language, the name would naturally be different as well. The key that Charlotte understood was the imprint that created all things in the universe. He called this imprint the universe imprint. The mysterious energy that it produced was the power of branding. However, he had never seen this imprint before. In his imagination, the imprint that formed the core of his soul was probably in the shape of a coat of arms or a circle. However, no matter what he imagined it to look like, it was just a guess. He had never seen it before, so he could not be sure. However, this time he actually saw it. In his mind, in the depths of his soul consciousness, there was an oval imprint. It was formed by countless faintly glowing energy substances. They formed an oval shape that slowly rotated, absorbing and releasing energy, just like the breathing and heartbeat of life. In fact, it was more like a distant, unknown galaxy. Every faintly glowing energy substance was a star. Seeing the imprint, Charlotte was indescribably shocked. It actually exists. I saw it. It's so beautiful. The mysteries of life, even the mysteries of the universe, could it be hidden within it? One flower, one world. This was the supreme philosophy of Buddhism. The general idea was that the mysteries of the universe were hidden within an ordinary flower. As long as one's perception was enough, one could understand the mysteries of the universe through a flower. If a flower was like that, then what about a person? Charlotte's understanding of this saying was that the universe gave birth to all things. Every living thing had its own imprint, and all the mysteries of the universe were hidden within that imprint. A normal person would never be able to understand the mysteries of the universe from a flower, nor would they be able to see their own soul, let alone the imprint that formed the core of their soul. However, not only did Charlotte see his own soul, but he also saw the universe imprint hidden deep within his soul. Was this an opportunity that the Buddhists spoke of? No, this was just a result of evolution. Isotab had already evolved into a pure energy form, which meant that a soul that did not require a body. Right now, he could only see his own soul and the universe imprint that formed the core of his soul. This universe imprint can actually be called the origin imprint, because the origin of all things is the universe, Charlotte thought to himself. As the highest evolution of modern people and the first person in modern society, he was fully qualified to give the color of Earth's civilization to the universe. In fact, the name branding power also had the color of Eastern metaphysics. At the end of the examination, Charlotte was excited and unable to calm down. Drinking milk and thinking about the mysteries of the universe was one of life's greatest pleasures. But just as he was pondering how the origin mark absorbed energy and produced the power of the mark, he suddenly felt a thief's hand reach into the elastic band of his long johns. The hole in his brain was instantly filled up, and his thoughts that had flown high and far were also dragged back to the floor. He shifted his gaze and saw that Song Yin-Shao, who had unknowingly changed her position, was tugging at his hand and moving her head closer. In that instant, the mysteries of the universe, the origin of branding power, the origin of energy, the origin of life, and so on, were all crushed by a single tongue and mouth. Charlotte only had that 1 second to stop Song Yin-Shao. After that 1 second, he simply closed his eyes and enjoyed life. What was originally a matter of replenishing energy became something else. Charlotte replenished energy, but also lost energy. The two Korean beauties gave energy, but also absorbed energy. From time to time, angry roars could be heard from downstairs, as well as the strange sounds of people chewing on corpses. But the three people upstairs had already thrown all of this to the back of their minds. Under the threat of death, the two Korean beauties were willing to pole dance at the entrance of the stairway to hell. If death was something that would happen in the next minute, then in this minute, they would go crazy and have fun. The passionate boat finally entered the harbor. Charlotte was full, and Song Yin-xiao and Quan Zixian were also satisfied. When the three of them interacted again, the awkwardness and wariness from before had disappeared, and in its place was a close and harmonious relationship. Men and women were actually separated by a thin layer of paper. Once that layer of paper was pierced, they could do whatever they wanted with each other. Appa, can you tell us the truth? Song Yin-xiao, whose face had yet to recede, looked at Charlotte. Can we still get out of here alive? Quan Zixian also looked at Charlotte, waiting for his answer. Charlotte smiled. Don't worry. I promised you guys, so I will definitely do it. I will bring you guys out of here and let you leave Incheon alive. His confident words and confident smile were exactly what Quan Zixian and Song Yin-xiao wanted. The two Korean beauties pounced on Charlotte again. One of them kissed his eyes, while the other kissed his lips. Charlotte thought that they would end soon, but there was no end to it. Instead, it became even more intense. Then, the scene became chaotic again. It was out of control, and no one was there to control it. Roar. A hellhound virus-infected person suddenly rushed up from the bottom of the stairs. It was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had reached the corridor on the second floor. It opened its bloody mouth and bit down on Quan Zixian's exposed white blob. Charlotte grabbed Quan Zixian's arm and pulled her from his waist to his head. At the same time, he kicked out with his right leg. Bang! A dull sound rang out in the corridor. The hellhound virus-infected person who had suddenly rushed up to launch a sneak attack had his head kicked off by Charlotte. The headless corpse flew down the stairs, knocking down several hellhound cannons that were charging up the stairs. Charlotte pushed away Quan Zixian, who was on top of him, and stood up. He shouted, "You guys go up to the third floor. Hurry!" Quan Zixian and Song Yin-xiao did not dare to stay any longer. They rushed up the stairs and climbed up to the third floor. It was still the same scene. As they climbed up the stairs, their short skirts bounced up and down. Every time they bounced up and down, a large area of their snow-white breasts would be revealed. The scene was too beautiful to look at. More hellhound virus-infected people charged up the stairs. Only then did Charlotte notice that the corpses blocking the staircase entrance had been eaten alive. Additionally, the hellhound virus-infected people who had just charged up the stairs appeared to be even stronger than the ones he had killed earlier. This discovery made Charlotte even more worried about the evolution of the hellhound virus. One of the hellhound virus-infected people charged up the stairs. Charlotte collected his thoughts and punched out. Gotcha! The hellhound virus-infected person's head instantly split open. Blood and red brain matter flowed out from the cracks. A new battle had begun. The hellhound virus-infected people charged up the stairs, wave after wave, not fearing death. Charlotte stood at the entrance to the second floor. Like before, he was like a single man holding the pass against 10,000 enemies. At this moment, he was not afraid of this kind of battle. He believed that this kind of battle would allow him to better understand the power of the branding, allowing him to become stronger. Charlotte was on a killing spree at the entrance to the second floor. At the entrance to the third floor, two Korean beauties were wolfing down a pile of high-calorie food. Hurry up and eat. Eat more. Otherwise, you won't be able to produce milk, Song Yin-xiao said as she chewed on a sausage. Quan Zixian was also chewing on a piece of beef jerky. She said in a muffled voice, "We are his logisticians. We have to make sure he is full." Song Yin-xiao's gaze suddenly shifted to the corner of the wall beside her. There was a teacup lying there. She grabbed the teacup and excitedly said, "This can be used to hold milk." Quan Zixian glanced at the teacup. Then, she grabbed the teacup from Song Yin-xiao's hand and smashed it against the wall. "You?" Song Yin-xiao looked at Quan Zixian with a strange expression. "Drink it straight. It is more nutritious," Quan Zixian said seriously. Then, the two Korean beauties looked at each other and smiled. It was as if the two women were hiding a common secret in their hearts. Fight, replenish energy. Fight again, replenish energy. The corpses in the staircase piled up and were eaten. The hellhound virus infected people who had opened up the passageway, charged up, only to be killed again. The two women also had their own tasks. That was to feed, eat, feed again, and eat again. The battle that occurred in the staircase was repeated over and over again. This wasn't like killing monsters in the game to level up, but what Charlotte was doing was killing monsters to level up. In the past, he was afraid of fighting the hellhound virus-infected people. But now, he desired to fight them. When the two women couldn't keep up, Charlotte would directly devour the energy in the hellhound virus-infected people's brains to replenish his energy at a faster rate. After the side effects were produced, he would find the two women to eat. He would use the secret method he knew to eliminate the side effects of devouring the energy of the hellhound virus-infected people. This kind of battle was very difficult, but this difficulty meant that would be easier when he faced Sitab and Kaja Ruiz in the future. He had to protect his wife and children, protect China. If he wanted to survive, he had to become stronger. The sun moved across the sky. The darkness quickened its pace. A new night had arrived. Charlotte and the two Korean beauties moved from the first floor of the building to the 30th floor. If they went up, they would reach the rooftop. The staircase entrance to the 30th floor was once again blocked by Charlotte with corpses. It would take some time for the hellhound virus-infected people to rush up. But it wouldn't take long because the corpse wall formed by the corpses could be heard. The horrifying sounds of the hellhound virus-infected people gnawing on the corpses of their own kind could be heard. What do we do? What do we do? Quan Zixian looked anxious. We have no way out. Appa, wake up and think of something. Song Yin laughed so hard that she was about to cry. Let's go to the rooftop, Charlotte said. Then he added, you guys go up first. I'll go look for a cargo plane and something to start a fire. While we start a fire, we'll be discovered, Quan Zixian said worriedly. Charlotte said, don't worry about that. We'll be able to leave this place very soon. Quan Zixian and Song Yin were doubtful. They couldn't figure out why Charlotte would say that they would be able to leave this place very soon. This was because the building had been occupied by the hellhound virus-infected people. Once the corpse wall blocking the staircase entrance on the 30th floor was eaten, countless hellhound virus-infected people would rush up. When that happened, Charlotte wouldn't be able to protect them at all. But even though they were worried, they still obeyed Charlotte's instructions and obediently went up to the rooftop. Chapter 1283. 2 minutes later, Charlotte also went up to the rooftop. He found a lighter from one of the corpses and carried a leather sofa up to the rooftop. Appa, why did you carry a sofa up here? Quan Zixian had a confused expression. Song Yinxiao also looked at Charlotte curiously. She did not ask why Charlotte carried a sofa up to the rooftop, but she had her own guess in her heart. Could it be that he wants to sit on the sofa and drink milk? However, just as Song Yinxiao was thinking about this, Charlotte used the lighter to set the sofa on fire. The leather sofa was set ablaze, and thick smoke rose along with the flames. In the dark of the night, the flames could be seen from far away. Appa, aren't you afraid that the U.S. Army or the Korean Army will discover us? Quan Zixian said nervously. Once they discover the flames, they will definitely send a helicopter over, and then they will shoot at us. Appa, quickly extinguish the fire. Song Yinxiao was afraid. Charlotte said, I lit this fire so that people will see me and then come and pick me up. Don't worry. I said that I will bring you out of here alive. I will definitely do it. Charlotte had actually lit the sofa up to let the Holy Thunder Spy satellite in the sky see it. He had lost the signal flare, and the burning sofa was his signal flare. At this time, Super Xiao Qian would probably have already flown the Hades fighter jet. With the speed of the Hades fighter jet, it would only take 15 minutes to fly here. In 15 minutes, the hellhound virus-infected people downstairs would not rush up. They would need at least half an hour to eat the corpses of their kind blocking the stairs. Appa, who will come to pick us up? Song Yinxiao asked tentatively. Xiao Lei said, "He's my man." Appa. Quan Zixin looked at Charlotte eagerly. "You will bring us along, right?" Charlotte smiled. "What's wrong with the two of you? Don't you believe me? I said that I will bring you out of here, and I will definitely do it." "Appa, you will bring us to China, right?" Song Yinxiao also looked at Charlotte eagerly. Charlotte was silent for a moment before he said, "Yes, I will take you to China." "Appa, you're the best." Song Yin smiled and leaned into Charlotte's embrace. She swayed her body and acted coquettishly towards Charlotte. That pair of soft and plump breasts pressed against Charlotte's chest. That ever-changing shape made one's imagination run wild. There was no space in Charlotte's arms, but Quan Zixin found her own space. But when she reached behind Charlotte, she hugged Charlotte's waist from behind and said in a gentle and seductive voice, "Appa, you're the best. When we reach China, I'll repay you however you want." Charlotte, a friend in need is a friend indeed. However, Charlotte was not worried at all that Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao would pester him. That was because once they left this place, he would hypnotize them so that their brains would lose this memory. At that time, they would not remember him, nor would they remember feeding him or even doing it with him. The three people who had gone through thick and thin together walked together. The sofa was still burning quietly, emitting light and heat. The leaping flames shone on the three of them, merging their figures together. There was you and me in you. Waiting would make the time even longer. Now, a minute felt like an hour. 10 minutes felt like an entire day to Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao. Suddenly, the roar of a helicopter's engine came from the sky. Only then did the two women let go of Charlotte. They looked in the direction where the roar of the engine came from. They saw the flashing signal lights on the tail of the helicopter, but they could not see the logo on the helicopter. Therefore, they had no idea whether it was Charlotte's people or a helicopter from the U.S. or Korean Army. Their hearts were filled with both excitement and worry. However, at that moment, Charlotte kicked the burning sofa away. He grabbed Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao's hands and pulled them toward the staircase entrance. The two women could not see clearly, but he could. It was a Black Hawk helicopter from the U.S. military. There were 4 U.S. Special Forces and 4 South Korean Special Forces on the Black Hawk helicopter. The Black Hawk was equipped with a minigun multi-barreled heavy machine gun and a machine gun. Its firepower was immense. The burning sofa flew off the rooftop and fell to the ground. The 30-story fall caused the burning sofa to shatter into pieces. However, the flames did not go out. It was still burning, but from a big ball, it had become many smaller balls. Just as Charlotte led Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixin into the staircase entrance, the Black Hawk helicopter appeared. "Everyone in the building, listen up." The helicopter hovered above the building. A Korean Special Forces soldier held a megaphone and shouted, "Please come out of the building. Don't be afraid. We are soldiers. We are here to save you." In the staircase, Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao looked at each other and immediately became excited. Quan Zixin said, "They are here to save us. We are saved." Song Yinxiao said excitedly, "Appa, come out with us. Those infected with the Hellhound virus will be here soon. If you don't leave now, you won't have a chance." However, Charlotte was indifferent. He only said indifferently, "Think about what happened last night. If you go out, will the U.S. military save you?" These words were like a bucket of cold water poured over Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao's heads. Last night, they did rush out, but they were almost shot to death by the U.S. Special Forces. If Charlotte had not saved them, their corpses would have started to stink. Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixin hesitated. They did not know whether to believe Charlotte or the Korean soldier who was shouting. On one side, it was Charlotte from China, the owner of Rema Group, the enemy of the U.S. and Korea. On the other side, it was their compatriot who spoke the same language. Who should they believe? Appa, I'm sorry. I have to go out. I don't want to stay here a minute longer." Quan Zixin said. Song Yinxiao hesitated for a moment and also said, "Appa, I want to go out too. I don't want to stay here either. If you don't want them to know you are here, we won't say a word." Charlotte said, "You have to think about it carefully. If you decide to leave, I won't stop you. But I still suggest that you leave with me. Because your government is implementing a clearance policy, the living people in the infected areas will either become food for the infected or be shot to death. They are absolutely not allowed to leave this place. No, we still believe in the Koreans. After all, we are Koreans too, Kwon Zishin said. Charlotte smiled bitterly. Then do as you wish. I respect your choice. Goodbye, Appa. Kwon Zishin leaned over and kissed Charlotte's cheek. Appa, you must give us a call after you leave this place. Song Yin-Shao also leaned over and kissed Charlotte's lips. After saying their goodbyes, the two women left the staircase and held hands as they walked to the rooftop. Xiao Lei, who was standing below, looked at the two dirty white balls. His mind was suddenly filled with the scene of him having intercourse with them and the milk that they had squeezed out from their bodies to feed him. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Carrying the M4A1, he walked up. He knew what was going to happen because he understood the nature of the state. It was cold and merciless. He didn't care about their life and death. If they died, it could even be said to be a good thing for him because he would not have to worry about them pestering him. He would not have to worry about them revealing the secret of his covert operation here. However, he could not be so cold and merciless. They had only been together for a short time, but he had drunk their milk. They had also worked hard to serve him and bring him pleasure. He could not forget these things. These were all the good things they had done for him. Although they had to rely on him for their survival, the good they had given him was real and wonderful. His principle was that if others treated him well, he would repay them with 10 times more. Now, how could he just watch them throw away their lives like that? Song Yin-Shao and Kwon Zishin walked out of the staircase and arrived at the rooftop. They waved at the helicopter above them and shouted for help. We are here, don't shoot, we are Koreans. I am Kwon Zishin, she is Song Yin-Shao. Kwon Zishin's voice was heard. You must recognize us. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, a series of gunshots rang out. Several bullets fell from above and hit the ground in front of the two women, causing sparks to fly. If not for the strong wind generated by the helicopter's propellers that deflected the bullets, the two women would have fallen to the ground. The frightened Kwon Zishin and Song Yin-Shao turned around and ran toward the staircase. Song Yin-Shao, who was the most timid among them, even burst into tears. F***CK. How dare they pretend to be Kwon Zishin and Song Yin-Shao? On the helicopter, a Korean Special Forces soldier sneered. He lowered the minigun MHMG and aimed it at the two women's backs. Then, he pressed the fire button with his thumb. As long as the minigun MHMG opened fire, the two women would be torn to shreds. A ray of light suddenly flew out from the stairwell's exit. Before the Korean SWAT soldier could see what it was, blood burst out from his forehead. His vision turned black, and he fell from the helicopter. Gunman, open fire! Open fire! A Korean captain slammed the door of the cockpit. The tail of the Nighthawk rose up, and the nose of the helicopter moved down. The machine gun was activated. Xiao Lei pulled the two women into the staircase, then turned around and jumped back with them. Tut, tut, tut. The Nighthawk's machine gun was activated and a hail of bullets rained down. A rumbling explosion rang out, and the entire building trembled amidst the flames and smoke. The staircase that led to the rooftop was destroyed in the blink of an eye. Debris from the building and the machine gun flew in all directions. Kwon Zishin and Song Yin-Shao hid in Charlotte's arms and screamed and cried. Charlotte used his body to pin them down to prevent them from being injured by the concrete debris or the shrapnel. 2 minutes later, the bombardment stopped. A large part of the top floor of the building had been torn off. On the helicopter, the Korean captain shouted through a megaphone, "Listen up, people inside. Come out immediately and surrender. Otherwise, we will attack on the ground." Using this method, they had already eliminated many survivors. But at this moment, the American pilot of the Nighthawk suddenly pointed to the front of the cockpit and exclaimed, "What is that?" Just as he finished speaking, a black fighter jet suddenly flew over. Thump, thump, thump. Machine gun fire. The Nighthawk hovering above the building was instantly torn in half and crashed down. Boom! The Black Hawk exploded on the ground. Flames shot up into the sky, followed by more intense explosions. That was the explosion of the ammunition it carried. None of the people on the helicopter survived, but they did not deserve sympathy. The black fighter jet that suddenly appeared circled around the building. Then, it lowered its engine and changed into a vertical mode. It slowly landed on the rooftop of the building. Charlotte got up from the ground and patted the dust off his body. "We should go. My people are here." Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixin got up from the ground. The tears on their faces were still wet. They looked at Charlotte. At this moment, Charlotte, who was covered in dust, looked like a holy angel in their eyes. His body gave them a faint feeling of light. Xiao Lei smiled. "Help me take a look and see if there's a grain of sand in my eye." "Huh?" The two women obediently moved closer and carefully looked at Charlotte's eyes. Charlotte's eyes quietly changed. They were pitch black like a deep black hole. His encounter with the two Korean beauties would only exist in his memory. He would never have any contact with them again. Chapter 1284. The Hades fighter jet landed in a field. Charlotte carried Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao down from the cockpit and placed them on a patch of grass. They were sleeping peacefully. The gentle moonlight shone on their bodies, but their thighs were whiter than the moonlight. Charlotte shifted his gaze to the distance. There was a road in the distance. Occasionally, there would be cars passing by on the road. From afar, he could see the lights of the cars. Further away was the capital of Korea, Seoul. That place was brightly lit and bustling. He placed Quan Zixin and Song Yinxiao there. They could walk on the road and take a ride to Seoul. This was the best arrangement, and there was nothing better than this. He had promised them that he would bring them back to China, but that was just a white lie. He would never fulfill it. "Goodbye." Charlotte reached out his hand to touch Song Yinxiao and Quan Zixin's cheeks. Then, he climbed into the cockpit of the Hades fighter jet and started it up. It took off in the direction of China. After the Hades fighter jet left, the two women woke up. "Why am I here?" Quan Zixin looked at the field in front of her in shock. "That's right. Why are we here?" Song Yinxiao was also shocked. Then, the two women found that their bodies were in a mess. They didn't have underwear, their butts were dirty, and their thighs were dirty. However, these weren't the things that made them feel frightened. What made them feel frightened was that their breasts had actually flowed out of them. "Why do I have milk? How would I know? I also have milk, damn it. I can't remember anything." "Me too. Something must have happened. Something must have happened. I'm going crazy. Why do I have milk?" Quan Zixin rubbed her hair. She had lost control. The two Korean milk cows could no longer remember the man who had saved them. In the sky, Charlotte, who was piloting the Hades fighter jet, did not have the slightest bit of happiness. Although he had destroyed Isotab's base this time, and had even strangely corrupted Isotab's pure energy body, that did not mean he had destroyed Isotab. He was sure that Isotab would return, and next time, he would have to face Isotab's thunderous rage. Also, it was getting closer and closer to the end of his life. But until now, he still hadn't figured out what Kasha Ruiz wanted from him. That guy still hadn't shown up until now, and all the motives of that guy could only be guessed. Charlotte couldn't help but recall the memory he stole from Isotab's brain. The girl being chased, the arm that reached out from the white screen, and the glowing mineral powder-like substance that the owner of the arm shoved into Isotab's mouth. Charlotte's thoughts suddenly stopped here. He thought to himself, what did that hand stuff into Isotab's mouth? Could it be the AE capsule that I ate before? It looked very similar, but how is that possible? If Isotab's evolution was also obtained from the AE capsule, doesn't that mean that her clansmen did not evolve to the same level as her? Perhaps her clansmen have a real body? Although this was only a guess based on that memory, and there was no evidence to prove it, the possibility of this guess being true was very high. Yes, that's most likely the case. If her clansmen were all extremely powerful, pure energy bodies like her, she would not have needed to build the Black Moon Army to destroy the world's strongest army. She said that her clansmen were already very few and could not take another blow. She wanted to create a safe environment for her clansmen. Also, Keisha Ruiz once said that her greatest wish was to rebuild their civilization. At this thought, Charlotte finally felt a little happy. All this while, she had thought that Isatab's clansmen were the same as Isatab's. They were all extremely powerful, pure energy bodies and were not afraid of any physical attacks. However, if her clansmen also had a body of flesh and blood, it meant that they could be destroyed. With the performance of the weapons on Earth, it was not very difficult to achieve this. Now, it seemed that he only needed to kill Isatab and destroy her energy bar to help this world survive this crisis. Xiaoqian, Charlotte shouted. Xiaoqian appeared in the pilot's cabin. She yawned in her pajamas. Master, what's the matter? I'm sleeping. Yawn? You can be sleepy too? Charlotte was a little speechless. Of course, I'm a girl. Girls love to sleep, Super Xiaoqian said. Some lies would even be believed if they were told too many times. Charlotte had designed her too perfectly. She had a human nature that was almost comparable to a real person. It was also because of this that she, who did not have a real body, always used words and actions like this to satisfy her desire to become a real woman. At the end of the day, it was Charlotte himself who was to blame, not Super Xiaoqian. Charlotte did not want to talk nonsense with Super Xiaoqian. He said, "Take action immediately. I don't care if you use our spy satellite or hack into another country's spy satellite. Anyway, I want you to use all the channels you can use to get information on the Hellhound virus outbreak zones in Nigeria, India, and Mexico. I want to find Isatab's base. The virus outbreak zones in Nigeria, India, and Mexico have all been locked down. It's not hard to get the relevant information. But Master, what are you going to do after you find it?" Super Xiaoqian asked. Charlotte said, "Hack into their defense system and launch missiles to blow up Isatab's base. If you can't hack in and launch missiles, then send our Kuin Peng bombers to bomb it. In short, we have to destroy Isatab's base." Wow. Super Xiaoqian snapped her fingers, but there was no sound. Got it. A terrifying light flashed in Charlotte's eyes. He had infected Isatab, and she was currently in a weak state. This was a precious opportunity to strike back, take advantage of her weakness, and kill her. The Hades jet did not land at the military base in Weihai. Instead, it flew directly back to the capital. When they returned to the Rema Group's headquarters in the capital, the sky was still dark. Charlotte returned to the Ping residence and went to Fanfan's room without taking a shower. His arrival woke Fanfan up, but his precious daughter, Xia Jianghe, was still sleeping soundly on her small bed. "Hubby," Fanfan crawled out of the bed. Xiaolei sat on the edge of the bed and went straight to the point. "I've already done my investigation. Listen carefully to what I have to say, then sort out what I told you and submit it." Fanfan was not sleepy at all. Charlotte slowly continued. The CIB was involved in the Hellhound virus outbreak in Incheon, South Korea. I saw the head of the CIB, Williams, in Incheon 3 days later. A black Big Mac took off from Rema Group, entered India at night, and dropped a large number of bombs in a satellite city of New Delhi. The target of the bombing was a building, and the tens of thousands of Hellhound virus-infected people gathered around the building. The bombs that fell from the sky destroyed the target in an instant, and the tens of thousands of Hellhound virus-infected people gathered around the target building were also burned to ashes. The Indian government immediately responded. All troops entered a state of war. Fighter jets searched for the invading bomber, and intelligence personnel used all resources to collect relevant information. Diplomats spoke internationally, condemning the invasion. But that was it. There were no other actions. Some people in the Indian government would definitely guess that it was China's Kunpeng bombers. But so what? The current China was no longer the China of the past. China, with its Yama fighters and Kunpeng bombers, was no longer a country that anyone could provoke. Just as the Indian government was making these moves, the Kunpeng bomber had already appeared over the Indian Ocean and was flying towards Nigeria. At the same time, a Mexican warship launched almost all its missiles into its territory, and those missiles flew toward a landmark in Leon a few hours later, The Kuin bomber flew over Nigeria and dropped a bomb over a city, blowing up the target it had locked on to. In fact, no matter which area the target was in, there was a significant characteristic. There were tens of thousands of hellhound virus-infected people circling around a landmark, so there was no need to worry about bombing the wrong place. In one day, Charlotte destroyed all the bases in Isatab, and he was not on the Kuin bomber that carried out the mission. The Kuin bomber was piloted by Super Xiaoqian the whole time. When Super Xiaoqian piloted the Kuin bomber in Nigeria and dropped the bomb, Charlotte was in a secret room in the Rema Group's headquarters, watching the bomb explosion that Super Xiaoqian sent back. This secret room was built after the birth of the Kuin bomber and the Yama fighter jet. It was actually a miniature battle command center. Here, he could see all the images that the Holy Thunder spy satellite had detected, and he could also control the Rema Group's fighter jets to take off and carry out the mission. Not only the Yama fighter jet and the Kuin bomber, but also the Rema Group's Bramble drones and Ghost drones. Although it was just a small secret room of 20 square meters, it was the most advanced and most terrifying battle command center in the world. Because here, Charlotte could bomb anywhere he wanted. Even the Pentagon was no exception. Seeing the flames rising in the three-dimensional projection, the building that Isatab had built as a base suddenly collapsed, and the hellhound virus-infected people circling around the building were instantly burned to a crisp. Charlotte finally heaved a sigh of relief, because he was sure that he had destroyed at least 3 energy bars. After the trip to Incheon, South Korea, Charlotte already knew Isatab's secret. So as long as the hellhound virus-infected people circled around the base, Isatab's energy bars would be in operation. The bombing of the Kuin bomber would destroy those energy bars. Isatab had taken 1 energy bar from Incheon, and in addition to the 2 that had not been used, she should still have 3 energy bars with her. It was impossible to know how the loss of 3 energy bars would affect her plan. But no matter what, in the battle with Isatab, he had the upper hand this time. Beep, 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 beep. In the quiet secret room, the ringtone of the satellite phone suddenly rang. Charlotte took out the satellite phone and slid the answer button. "Boss, I've sent the things to your mailbox. Take a look." Qian Jun's voice came from the satellite phone. "I got it. Come back," Charlotte said. "Okay." Qian Jun hung up the phone. Chapter 1285. Turning on the hacker's computer, Charlotte quickly found the encrypted email sent by Qian Jun. He opened the email and saw the contents. There was a video and a few photos. Charlotte opened the video first. It was a high-end residence. Williams was reading a copy of the Wall Street Journal by the fireplace. He frowned. He was worried and dissatisfied with the report. During this period, the stocks of several large U.S. companies were attacked, and the Dow Jones Index continued to fall. Then Standard & Poor's downgraded the investment grade of the U.S. capital market. The U.S. economy, which had just gotten out of the subprime mortgage crisis, was hit again. The future was pessimistic. Most of his money was in the companies that had been attacked. The U.S. economy had suffered a setback, and his assets had also suffered losses. Of course, he couldn't be happy about such a thing. A blonde woman walked out of the kitchen with a cup of coffee in her hand. "Honey, have a cup of coffee," the blonde said. From the way she addressed him and her age, she should be Williams's wife, Hina. Damn, what happened? Someone dares to attack a U.S. company. Williams took the coffee but did not drink it. He put it on the small square table beside him. Microsoft suffered the most losses, Hina said. Hila said, someone stole Microsoft source code. Now, any software company can create a Windows system. It's almost destroyed. Next was Apple, which relied on its iOS system to survive. The damn hacker also released the source code of the iOS system and created a virus to target the iOS system. Now, most of the Apple phones in the market can't be used. The sales of Apple 7 phones are also affected. That's enough. Stop talking. Williams did not want to listen anymore. The companies that were attacked were the most important companies in the U.S., but it affected the entire U.S. capital market. These companies were like the pillars supporting the building. Now, someone was destroying these pillars. Once they were destroyed, how could the building remain unscathed? Do you have any suspects? Hina asked. Williams snorted. Is there a need to check? Who else could it be other than that guy from China? He was the only one in the world who dared to mess around with the United States. He even dared to bomb the Seventh Fleet, let alone attack the U.S. capital market. Why didn't you kill him? Kill him? Humph. The people in the White House and the Pentagon have been holding meetings every day to figure out how to get rid of that kid. The CIA has also come up with one plan after another. But what's the result? That kid and his Rema group made the whole of America afraid to act recklessly. Do you remember Lockheed Martin's latest Dragon Slayer fighter jet? Of course I remember. That fighter jet is now in China. It has been captured, and the U.S. doesn't even dare to admit it. The more Williams spoke, the angrier he became. He slammed the Wall Street Journal on the table. What about that woman? Hina seemed to remember something. Isn't the CIA working with her? She should have the ability to kill that kid. Did you see her in Korea 3 days ago? Yes, I have. Williams said, our goal is to let the virus enter China. That woman said to give her some time. She said she has a more important plan, but she promised me that China will be destroyed. A smile appeared on Hina's face. That's good. Although it's not immediate, as long as the result doesn't change, it's in our interest. You don't have to worry, we just need to wait. Williams nodded. Hina moved to Williams's side and then sat on his lap. She kissed his forehead and lips and then put her hand into his clothes. Old people also needed that kind of life. It wasn't the first time that Hina and Williams did it by the warm fireplace. The scene in the video became a bit unbearable to watch. From the angle of the video, it was just a camera installed in the living room. In this operation, Super Xiaoqian provided technical support for Qianjun. With her ability to control a camera in Williams's residence, it was as easy as pie. In the video, Hina untied Williams's belt and was ready to take it out. At this time, a man's figure appeared in the living room. He wore a black mask, black clothes, and a pair of socks on his shoes. He also wore a pair of latex gloves used by doctors during surgery. Although he covered himself from head to toe, Charlotte still recognized from his back that this man was Qianjun Williams and his wife, who were making out, didn't notice that there was one more person in the living room. The couple teased each other, and their clothes fell on the floor one by one. Under the light, the couple's body had no beauty to speak of, and their skin was full of wrinkles. Especially Hina, her buttocks had no elasticity to speak of. Her breasts were like a half-filled hot water bag, dangling as if she was on the brink of death. No matter how beautiful a flower was, it would wither one day, and no matter how beautiful a woman was, there would be a day when she aged. Qianjun walked to the fireplace, holding an Italian Beretta 92F pistol with a silencer in his hand. There was a reason why he didn't use the Viper pistol. After all, the person he wanted to kill was the leader of the CIB. Not using the Viper pistol produced by Rema Group was also out of consideration to avoid trouble. Williams and Hina had already changed positions. Williams couldn't wait to put Hina on the small square table next to the sofa and then pressed on her. At that very critical moment, a hand suddenly grabbed his shoulder. Williams was suddenly startled and turned around in panic. Then he saw a gunman in black. His expression instantly froze, and his eyes were full of fear. Hina also saw Qianjun. She couldn't help but exclaim, and even forgot to cover the embarrassing parts of her body. Kneel! Qianjun's voice was cold and ruthless. Who are you? What do you want? Although Qianjun's gun was pointed at his head, Williams was a man who had been through a lot, and he was also the leader of the largest spy organization in the United States. He quickly calmed down and didn't look nervous. Do you know who I am? Do you know the consequences of doing this? Qianjun said lightly, I know you are Williams, and I also know who you are. I came to kill you this time. Who wants to kill me? Williams's eyes moved to a shotgun next to the fireplace, which was loaded with bullets. Qianjun also looked at the shotgun next to the fireplace, and then said, That gun can't help you. It will only make your death more painful. Kneel. Williams hesitated for a second, and then knelt on the carpet. At this time, he couldn't keep his calm. Are you sent by Charlotte? Qianjun didn't speak. He pulled Hina who was lying on the small square table down. Hina covered her chest and knelt next to Williams. She looked very scared. "How much money did he give you?" "I gave you double." Williams then changed his words. "No, I gave you 10 times. Jun sneered. "Last time when I accompanied him for tea, he inexplicably gave me $20 million. You want to buy me with money? Do you have that much money?" Williams's forehead suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Even if he sold all his assets, and even the clothes he was wearing, he wouldn't have $20 million. How could he buy this killer with? Using money to buy the subordinates of the richest man in the world was actually asking for trouble. "Look at that camera." Jun pointed to the surveillance camera installed in the corner. "He has a request. That is, he wants to see you die. I think he wants to see your expression when you die. Cooperate with him." "Charlotte." Williams looked at the surveillance camera, and he suddenly lost control of his emotions. "F*CKU. Are you crazy? Do you know who I am? The person you want to kill is the director of the CIB. Get your people to leave immediately, and I will pretend that nothing happened." Jun suddenly shot Sheila's head. Puff! Sheila's head suddenly had a hole, and blood and gray matter came out. She didn't even have time to say goodbye to Williams before she fell on the carpet. "Hina." "No," Williams wailed, and he was filled with grief and indignation. Jun pressed the muzzle against the back of Williams's head. "I curse you. You will go to hell." Williams closed his eyes, and his body was trembling because of fear. Puff! Williams also fell on the carpet. This was an assassination and also an execution. As the leader of the CIB, Williams made one plan after another to kill Charlotte. Many China agents died because of him, and he was also related to the deaths of Amanda, Pu Taiyong, Bagu, and Marcus. Killing him would be equivalent to avenging the 4 of them. In fact, this wasn't the only reason Charlotte sent Jun to kill Williams. Another reason was that Williams was cooperating with Isotab, which was very dangerous for the entire world, so he had to die. Jun placed the gun in Sheila's hand, and then took out a few photos from his pocket and placed them on the small square table. It was a photo of Williams and a young blonde. It was very intimate. The FBI would probably conclude that Hina discovered her husband's infidelity, and in a rage, killed Williams, and then shot herself. As for whether anyone would believe such a conclusion, Charlotte didn't care at all. Even if the CIB eventually suspected him, so what? He didn't care about the feelings of any person or organization in the U.S. As long as the Rema Group was there, the U.S. war machine wouldn't dare start. The video ended here, and a smile appeared on Charlotte's face. This was a smile that came from the bottom of his heart. He had blown up the other 3 bases in Isotab and killed the leader of the CIB, Williams, who he didn't even dare to touch in the past. This series of counterattacks was very satisfying, and he could finally vent the anger that had accumulated in his heart. His feeling was really great. The next opponent he had to face was only Keisha Ruiz. The prehistoric one, where are you? Charlotte couldn't help but think about this question. After sitting quietly for a while, he got up and left the secret room, then walked out of the Rema Group and walked toward the Holy Thunder Church. The battle with Keisha Ruiz was inevitable, and before that, he must become stronger. And to become stronger, he needed more milk, and Giovanna and the other 3 had the milk he needed. Chapter 1286. The morning sun shrouded the Holy Thunder Church. Under the blue sky and white clouds, it seemed to have a kind of holy radiance. Charlotte had become a god of the Rescue Association. But was he a god? At first, he denied it, but now that he had evolved, even he himself couldn't figure it out. Because the power of branding was omnipotent, it was the power of creation in the universe. It was also correct to understand it as the power of God, and he just happened to have this kind of power. The church was quiet. Because it was early in the morning, no one was praying in the church. Most people were still sleeping in their beds at this time, and the 6 housekeepers of his family were among them. A ray of sunlight shone through the stained glass and fell on the statue of Jesus on the cross, and the skin of the statue glowed with a golden brilliance. He looked at Xiaolei. His eyes did not blink, but they were filled with compassion. Charlotte suddenly stopped, and his eyes rested on the chest of the statue of Jesus. There were 2 numbers on the chest of the statue of Jesus, 7 on the left and 2 on the right. Together, it was 72. Seeing this number, Charlotte's heart suddenly sank, and the good mood of killing Williams suddenly disappeared. Others might not understand this number, but he was very clear about what this number represented. It represented that there were only 71 days left before his death. There was no need to investigate who wrote this number on the statue of Jesus. He also knew who it was. The prehistoric one, Queijo Ruiz, the Apostle of Darkness. These 3 names represented the same person, and everything about him was a mystery. 71 days, 2 months, and 11 days. Just a summer vacation. As for the deadline, Charlotte actually didn't have a certain number, only a rough estimate, because this day was not up to him, but to Queijo Ruiz. If Queijo Ruiz said it was 71 days, then it was 71 days. If Queijo Ruiz said it was 10 days, then it was only 10 days. Just as Charlotte stared at the number on the chest of the statue of Jesus, black liquid suddenly flowed out of the eyes of the statue of Jesus. It flowed down the cheeks of the statue of Jesus and immediately left 2 black traces on the face. Under the golden sunlight and the statue of Jesus that was shedding black tears, Charlotte's heart suddenly gave birth to a terrifying feeling. His line of sight left the statue of Jesus and quickly searched the area within a 2-kilometer radius. He saw some people, but none of them was the target he was looking for. A few minutes later, he retracted his gaze. He walked to the foot of the statue and took out a tissue to wipe the black liquid off the statue's face and eyes. He then wiped off the number 71 written on the statue's chest. He didn't know why, but when his fingers touched the statue, the fear and uneasiness in his heart lessened. He felt a sense of peace and tranquility. Sometimes people really need faith. Holy lightning. Giovanna's voice came from the entrance of the church corridor. "What are you doing in the church so early?" Charlotte threw the napkin that was stained with the black liquid into a plastic garbage bag and walked over to Giovanna. "I have something to discuss with you." "Oh, then let's talk inside." A smile appeared on Giovanna's face, and she said as she walked, "Teresa is still sleeping in. Rosa and Teresa are in their room. I don't know if they have woken up yet. These days have been too comfortable, and they have become lazy." Charlotte smiled. "Sometimes people need to be a little lazy. It's not good to be tense all day. You only know how to spoil them," Giovanna said, looking at Charlotte as if she wanted to swallow him into her stomach. Charlotte followed Giovanna to the residential area in the backyard of the Holy Lightning Church and then came to a door. Giovanna did not knock on the door. She grabbed the doorknob and opened the door, then pulled Charlotte in. This was the room of Giovanna and Stella. They were the twin sisters of the Gray family, and they had always lived together. Therefore, when Charlotte entered the room, he felt a little dazzled. This was because there was a Giovanna standing beside him, and there was another Giovanna on the bed. The 2 identical blonde beauties were really a wonderful visual experience. Stella, who was lying on the bed, had her white legs pressed against the blanket, and her white buttocks were exposed to the air. They were plump, and it was a very sexy buttocks. The white lace that wrapped around her white buttocks was like a second layer of skin. Not only did it not affect the wonderful curve of her buttocks, but it also added a sense of tightness to it. However, her upper body was not the slightest bit off, and one of her back was exposed to the air without any cover. Together with her long blonde hair, it formed an alluring picture. A feast for the eyes. Stella, who was still sleeping in, was like a piece of strawberry cake that people could not help but want to eat her up. "Holy thunder, wait here for a moment. I'll go and call Rosa and Stella over." Giovanna left the room again. "Okay," Charlotte responded softly, but he was also thinking about how to broach the subject. After all, he could not treat them like he treated Quan Zixian and Song Yinxiao. He had to convince them to agree. However, just the thought of asking 4 unmarried women to produce milk for him gave him a headache, let alone bringing it up in front of them. Charlotte and Giovanna's voices woke Stella up. She turned over and opened her sleepy eyes. "Why are you so noisy? I still want to sleep a little longer." "Yawn?" Charlotte looked at her speechlessly. She turned over, and her plump bosom was exposed to his sight, just like a sweet and delicious cherry ice cream. The blanket slid down from between her legs, and the white lace covered a mature shape that emitted an alluring smell. Looking at this early in the morning, Charlotte felt a little uncomfortable in his lower abdomen. Stella rubbed her sleepy eyes, and when she saw Charlotte standing by the bed, her complaints immediately disappeared. She hurriedly grabbed the blanket to cover her body and said shyly, "Holy thunder, why are you here?" Charlotte shrugged. "I came to discuss something with you." "Get up, you lazy bum. It's getting late." Stella suddenly climbed up from the bed and jumped onto Charlotte's body. Her long legs, which took up 2/3 of her body, swayed and wrapped around Charlotte's waist. She also wrapped her arms around Charlotte's neck. "I'm a lazy bum. You can punish me. Don't stand on ceremony." Charlotte was speechless. Why was she covering herself just now? At this moment, Giovanna and the Russo sisters suddenly walked in from the door. When the three women saw Stella climbing onto Charlotte's body, they had strange looks in their eyes. Charlotte thought that Stella would get down from his body when the three women came, but the lazy bum was still on him and had no intention of leaving. So he felt that he was thinking too much. He didn't know how many times he had done it with the four of them. Would Stella, this lazy bum, do anything out of line in front of Giovanna, Rosa, and Teresa? Giovanna coughed. "Holy thunder, we're all here." Charlotte nodded, and then said to Stella, "Go ahead and put on your clothes." "You said I'm a lazy bum." "If you don't punish me, I won't get down," Stella said. Xiaolei's slap landed on Stella's big white ball. With a crisp slap, a beautiful ripple spread out. Stella let out a delicate cry and then got down from Charlotte's body. "Serves you right," Teresa said. Stella glared at Teresa. She rubbed her hot buttocks and then couldn't help but laugh. "Holy thunder. Do you want us to carry out a mission?" Giovanna looked serious. "We're already prepared." Charlotte's gaze swept over the four female knights' towering breasts. He knew very well what he wanted to say, but the words that came out of his mouth became hesitant. "That I wanted to invite you." The four female knights looked at each other. They were all very strange. In their hearts, Charlotte had always been a capable and straightforward person. What was wrong with him today? He was even hesitating when speaking. "Holy thunder, what's wrong with you? What happened?" Giovanna said, "We're your knights. We guard you and dedicate everything to you. That's our greatest value. Why can't you tell us?" The number 71, written on the statue of Jesus, suddenly appeared in Charlotte's mind, and he immediately felt pressured. He took a deep breath and braced himself to say, "I want you to produce milk for me." The four female knights' jaws immediately dropped to the ground. Charlotte said, "Yes, you heard me right. I need your milk. My body is different from normal people's. Your milk can make me stronger." "I thought it was something big." Stella smiled and shook her upper body. "You can have it any time. We're fine with it." Charlotte smiled bitterly. "What I want is to feed babies." The four female knights were speechless. "You don't have to think about anything else. You just need to promise me," said Charlotte. Giovanna said, "Of course we'll promise you. We'll promise you whatever you want. But we haven't had a baby yet. How can we give it to you?" Charlotte said, "Does this count as a promise?" The four female knights nodded in unison. Charlotte snapped his fingers and smiled. "Then it's decided. Next, I'll hypnotize your bodies and let your bodies enter the breastfeeding period. You'll produce milk like a woman who has given birth." "That works?" Giovanna and the other two female knights stared at Charlotte, dumbfounded. Charlotte smiled. "Don't you call me Holy Thunder? I'm the Son of God. Of course I can do it. Don't worry. This process won't take too long, and there won't be any discomfort. After that, you'll produce milk. You just need to squeeze it out and put it in a bottle for me." The four female knights looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with piety and longing for the Son of God, but there was also a hint of womanly thoughts. "No, that won't do," said Stella. "What's the matter?" asked Charlotte. Stella said, "I don't like bottles." Giovanna said, I don't like being squeezed. Rosa said, I'm afraid of pain. Teresa finally said, so, Holy Thunder, if you want us to produce milk for you, it's fine. But you have to come and get it yourself. You should know how to do it, right? Charlotte was speechless. The four female knights had a telepathic connection that ordinary people couldn't understand. They didn't discuss it, but when Charlotte was in a daze, they all sat on the bed and took off their clothes. They looked at Holy Thunder with longing and teasing eyes. A bitter smile appeared on Charlotte's face, and his eyes instantly darkened. An hour later, Charlotte left the Holy Thunder Church. As he walked, he burped. Each burp had a strong fragrance of milk. Chapter 1287. Isotab seemed to have disappeared from the world. Super Xiaoqian used all the means she could, but she could not find any trace of her. 3 of her bases were blown up, but she did not take any revenge. There was also Kaiser Ruiz, the only one in prehistory who left the number 71 on the statue of Jesus in the Holy Thunder Church. He seemed to have vanished from this world, and Xia Lei couldn't find any information about him. The other one was his dad, Xia Changhe. He knew that even Charlotte could not figure out his relationship with Kaiser Ruiz. He suspected that his dad, Xia Changhe, was the mysterious leader of the FA organization. He even suspected that his dad, Xia Changhe, was one of Kaiser Ruiz's clothes. He also suspected that his dad, Xia Changhe, was the third pole other than Isotab and Kaiser Ruiz. However, he needed to talk to his dad, Xia Changhe, to find out the answer. However, his father had disappeared as well. At this crucial moment, it was like a ticking time bomb. Isotab disappeared, and the base of the Black Moon Army was destroyed. However, the world was not quiet at all. The stocks of Microsoft, Apple, and Google fell again and again. The 3 giants were on the verge of collapse. Some large American companies were also attacked and suffered heavy losses. Due to the influence of these large companies and consortiums, a new financial crisis appeared on Wall Street. It was named Assassin Storm. This was not a crisis that would inevitably occur when the capital market reached a certain stage. It was a man-made crisis. Therefore, the name Assassin Storm was very appropriate. The mastermind behind Assassin Storm was Super Xiaoqian, and she was instructed by Charlotte. However, the source of this financial crisis was still Charlotte. At first, he only used $40 million to snowball the American stock market. Later, Super Xiaoqian snowballed this snowball to over $1 trillion USD. Such a snowball was actually not a big deal for the American capital market. It was still bearable. However, all this changed after Super Xiaoqian killed the American god system. Now, there was only one queen in the entire online world, and that was Super Xiaoqian. She had not only taken over Europe's online world, but she had also taken over America's online world. Even in the United States, she could get whatever information she wanted. If she wanted to control a certain camera, she could control that camera. She could even command the airplanes to collide with each other and create a terrorist attack with heavy casualties at any time. However, Charlotte would not allow her to do so. All he wanted was for the United States to repay the wealth they had taken from the third world countries over the years and to pay the price for what they had done. He didn't want a terrorist attack. He had never been a terrorist. The storm of assassins spread like a virus in the U.S. capital market. On the other hand, the real virus was under control. This was also thanks to Charlotte's removal actions. He sent out Kuan-Pung bombers to bomb the bases in India and Nigeria. Super Xiaoqian also hacked into Mexican warships and fired missiles at the bases in Mexico. Although the cleanup operation did not completely eradicate the Hellhound virus, at least it was under control and did not spread to other areas. This was the current state of the world. There were good things happening and bad things happening. Some people were born and some people died. Time would not stop. No matter what was happening in the world, its footsteps were always in a hurry. Day 51. Husband, you look after the child. I will go and cook. Jiang Rui introduced Xia Jianghe to Charlotte. Xia Shui and Zheng Nian are coming over for dinner tonight. As a sister-in-law, I have to take care of it. Do you want me to help? Said Charlotte. Before Jiang Rui had time to speak, Xia Jianghe took Charlotte's hand and said, Min, don't go into the kitchen. Play with your daughter. Dad, let's perm Barbie's hair. Do you have a lighter? Charlotte, Jiang Rui slapped Xia Jianghe's little butt. She rolled her eyes and reprimanded. You little brat. Mom loves you for nothing. Xia Jianghe took Charlotte's hand and walked away. Dad, let's go. Ignore her. Jiang Rui spread her hands. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but her heart was full of happiness and warmth. The best man in the world was her husband. He was holding the smartest girl in the world that she had with him. What else was there for her to be dissatisfied with? Charlotte played with Xia Jianghe. It didn't take long for Liang Jiayu, Xia Long, and Xia Fan to come. Finally, Xia Yang, Xia Yu, and Xia Tavong, who were toddlers, also came under the leadership of Shinda Tianin and Liang Xiao. 7 children, 1 father, 6 wives. The Xia family was so prosperous that it made people jealous. In the evening, Xia Shui and Ryu Yungnam came over. The family ate at the same table, and it was very lively. Xia Shui's belly was already bulging, but it wasn't very obvious. At the dining table, Xia Shui kept asking the 6 sisters-in-law about prenatal education and raising children. The 2 men were left aside. Brother, I propose a toast to you. Thank you. Ryu Yungnam held the glass with both hands and toasted Charlotte. Charlotte picked up the glass and touched it with Ryu Yungnam. He said with a smile, What are you thanking me for? Everything. Ryu Yungnam drank it in one gulp. Charlotte didn't say anything and drank the wine in the glass. He understood Ryu Yungnam's intention. He achieved everything for him and even married Xia Shui to him. Of course, a thank you wasn't enough, but he could feel the sincerity and responsibility in Ryu Yungnam's heart. This was enough. The only thing that made him feel regretful was that he couldn't see the birth of Xia Shui's child. As an uncle, it was very likely that he would never have a chance to see his nephew. After a while, I will go on a long journey. Masahiro, take care of Xiao Shui and your sisters-in-law. Charlotte whispered. Ryu Yungnam nodded. Brother, even if you don't say it, I know what to do. Right, where are you going? Charlotte's heart was filled with bitterness. Where am I going? Either in the world in the box. I don't know if I'm alive or dead, let alone where I'm going. Or I die in the hands of Cassia Ruiz and be separated from him forever. But he couldn't tell Ryu Yungnam and his wives about this. All he could say was to tell them not to worry and that he would return safely. But whether he could come back or not, he had no confidence. And it's related to state secrets. You don't have to ask. Charlotte said, and then I won't ask. Let's have another drink. Ryu Yungnam poured a glass of wine for Charlotte. The 2 men drank, and the women talked about their children. The dining room was filled with a harmonious and happy atmosphere. But the more harmonious and happy the atmosphere was, the more sad Charlotte's heart was. Cassia Ruiz had left a deadline of 71 days on the statue of Jesus in St. Lay Church. Now, it was already 51 days, which meant that he only had 20 days left. Apart from the 20 days he had left, he only had 19 days left in reality. In 19 days, he would leave his wife and children, leave the Rema group that he had worked so hard to build, and leave everything he had now. How could he not be sad? The corner of his eyes quietly became moist. In order not to be discovered, he deliberately dropped the chopsticks on the ground, then bent down to pick them up. While picking up the chopsticks, he reached out to wipe the tears from the corner of his eyes. Xiao, eat a piece of fish. Liang Xiao picked up a piece of cod and put it in Shintu Tianin's bowl. She said with a smile, You have 2 children, and you don't have enough milk. There's also an older child who sneaks. You should eat more fish to nourish your body. Thank you. Shintu Tianin smiled awkwardly. Long Bing said, Xiao, Masahiro is still here. What are you talking about? I forgot. Liang Xiao laughed and said, Masahiro, did you hear anything? Ryu Yungnam hurriedly shook his head. Sister-in-law, I didn't hear anything. Did you say anything? Isn't that right? Ha ha. Liang Xiao laughed so hard that she was trembling. Women who practiced martial arts were forthright. Tang Yuyin said, "Xiao, let's go practice later. Let's practice. I haven't exercised for a long time, but I won't be lenient." Liang Xiao said. Tang Yuyin rolled her eyes at Liang Xiao. "Who wants you to give way? I will beat you until you are convinced." "My mother is strong," Liang Jiayu said. "My mother is stronger than the second mother," Xiao Long said. Liang Jiayu and Xiao Long started arguing at the children's table next to the big dining table. "That's enough." Xiao Fan slammed his little palm on the table. "My mother is the strongest in the Xiao family." Last night, I heard with my own ears, my mother beat my father until he begged for mercy. At the big dining table, a group of adults looked at each other. Each of them had awkward and strange expressions. "I don't believe it." Xiao Long was not convinced. "I don't believe it either," Liang Jiayu said, looking angry. Xiao Fan pointed at Charlotte with his chubby little finger. "If you don't believe me, you can ask my father. Last night, he kept saying, 'No, no, I can't take it anymore, please stop.'" Clatter. The chopsticks in Charlotte's hand fell to the ground. A few seconds later, the dining room was filled with laughter again. Fan Fan covered her face, not daring to look at anyone. The child's innocence made Charlotte relax for a moment, but only for a moment. Although there was still a smile on his face, it was a fake smile. As the end of his life approached, there was one more thing on his mind. The relationship between his 6 wives was not originally this harmonious. Fan Fan, Liang Xiao, Long Bing, and Jiang Rui originally did not accept Shinatianin. Among his 5 wives, only Tang Yuyin accepted Shinatianin, but she was only one person. He used deep hypnosis to solve this problem. Although the problem was solved, it was not real. If he left or died, it would be inevitable. If he did not solve this problem, there would always be a regret in his heart. How could he solve this problem? Even an upright official could not solve a family problem. This family problem had stumped him, the smartest person in the world. As he was thinking about this problem, Super Xiaoqian suddenly appeared. Wearing a snow-white winter suit and a thick hat, she looked out of place in the summer. Fortunately, the women of the Xiao family were already used to her existence, so they were not surprised by her sudden appearance. "Good evening, master mistresses." Super Xiaoqian took off the hat on her head, bowed, and said, "The construction of Shangri-La has been completed. Please inspect it." Then, another valley appeared in the air. The end of the valley was slowly pushed closer, and a refuge base for both civilian and military use appeared in everyone's sight. Chapter 1288. Ice and snow covered the mountaintop, shining under the sun like ice diamonds. The forest at the mountainside was dense, and hundreds of flowers were blooming. Xanadu was located in the valley between the iceberg and the forest, and it was a square city. There were thick walls made of reinforced concrete, and there were beautiful civil buildings. Under the blue sky and white clouds, Xanadu was as beautiful as a painting. "It's so beautiful, I really want to see it," Shintatianin said emotionally. "If it's in Xi province, the altitude is high, and the ultraviolet rays are strong. Will they get tanned?" Fan Fan was a little worried about this problem. Liang Xiao couldn't help but laugh out. "Why don't you bring more sunscreen? You can also go out with an umbrella to prevent ultraviolet rays." "Yes, Fan Fan, don't drag us down. I like this place. We must go and have a look," Long Bing said. Super Xiaoqian had a baton in her hand, and then she pointed to an antique house and said, "My beautiful mistresses, this is the room for you and the children. Each of you will have your own room, completely built according to the standard of a 5-star hotel presidential suite, with a separate bathroom and toilet, a sauna, and a multi-purpose video room. The usable area of a single room is up to 80 square meters." The women's expressions were a little exaggerated. In China, most families only lived in dozens of square meters, but in Xanadu, they lived in a room of 80 square meters, and it was the standard of a 5-star hotel presidential suite. This could not be said to be extravagant. After showing the mistress room, Super Xiaoqian showed the children's room. The children's room is a little smaller, only 40 square meters of usable area. There is a study room, a bathroom, and a gym. I have a terminal in the study room, and I have tailored a study plan for the children. Every child has different characteristics, so the study plan is also different. And my study plan has been arranged until they are 18 years old. At that time, they will be proficient in at least 10 foreign languages and professional knowledge such as physics, astronomy, mathematics, electrical engineering, and so on. The women couldn't close their mouths. If their children went to school, they would only graduate from high school at the age of 18. It was impossible for them to master any professional knowledge at the PhD level. But by going to Shangri-La and accepting Super Xiaoqian's learning program, the children will be able to achieve extraordinary things. They did not doubt Super Xiaoqian's ability at all, because Super Xiaoqian was the most powerful artificial intelligence in the world. Just a learning plan from Super Xiaoqian was enough to make them take action, because women live for their children. Super Xiaoqian said, "Mistresses, your children are not young anymore, and their intelligence is far beyond that of ordinary children. It will be very beneficial for them to receive education as soon as possible. All of your children are geniuses, but geniuses also need to work hard. Otherwise, even geniuses will become ordinary people. So, please make your decision. I'll go." Jiang Rui was the first to express her opinion. Xia Jianghe really should go to school. She's been naughty all day, and I'm getting a headache. Mom, Xia Jianghe pouted. I'm going to ignore you. There was laughter in the dining room again. Shinta Tianyin asked, Xiaoqian, can I work in that place? Super Xiaoqian said, of course, Mistress Tianyin. My computer is in Shangri-La, and I control the entire internet world in Shangri-La. In addition, I've already customized an office for you. Take a look. A multifunctional office appeared in the void. It was spacious and bright, with a lot of equipment that could not be seen on the market. It was full of sci-fi atmosphere. I can work here? Shinta Tianyin fell in love with the office that Super Xiaoqian had customized for her at first sight. Super Xiaoqian said, Mistress Tianyin, you can enjoy life in Shangri-La, and you don't need to work in person. I built an office for you just so that you can have fun when you want to manage the Wanxiang group. In fact, I've already assigned you a doppelganger secretary in this office. She can handle all the affairs of the Wanxiang group for you. When necessary, she can also imitate your appearance and hold a video conference with your subordinates. Shintu Tianyin laughed. I'm not addicted to it. Your arrangement is very good. I'll have more time to accompany Xia Yang and Xia Yu. Mistress Xiao, Mistress Long, Mistress Yu Yen. Super Xiaoqian said, you are all special agents, and I've also customized something fun for you. That is the Spicy Mom's Special Bureau. Spicy Mom's Special Bureau? Liang Xiao looked confused. Long Bing and Tang Yuyan couldn't help but look at each other. Another building appeared in the void. There was an office area, a shooting range for practice design, and a dazzling weapons and equipment warehouse. At a glance, one could tell who worked in this space. Super Xiaoqian said, the three of you are all Spicy Moms, so your group will be called the Spicy Mom Special Bureau. There, you can steal the intelligence secrets of any country in the world at will, and you can also destroy the intelligence operations of any country at will. Of course, I don't recommend you go out to fight. If you really want to fight, I've also designed a simulated battle for you. I promise you that the realism will reach 90%, and the immersive feeling will also reach 80%. In the future, I will improve this technology and make both indicators reach 99%. Ha ha ha. Long Bing laughed. Spicy Mom Special Bureau, right? I like it. It looks good. I like it too. Tang Yuyan also laughed. She reached out and fist-bumped Long Bing. Okay, Spicy Mom Special Bureau it is, Liang Xiao said with a smile. What about me? Fan Fan asked. Other women had their own exclusive good things. If she didn't, it would be embarrassing. Mistress Fan Fan, Super Xiaoqian said, I've customized a super laboratory for you. In this laboratory, you can research anything you want, including the Hellhound virus vaccine. Wow. Huh. That's great. Fan Fan clapped her hands a few times excitedly. Jiang Rui also wanted to ask, but she swallowed her words. She looked a little embarrassed. Among all the women who came down, she was the most ordinary one. She didn't have any special abilities, nor did she have any great skills. In such a situation, what could Super Xiaoqian build for her? At this time, Super Xiaoqian said, Mistress Rui, I've built you the best kitchen according to your characteristics, and there's also my personal assistant. She will provide you with all the recipes and cooking techniques in the world. Without a doubt, you will cook the most delicious food in the world in this kitchen. A smile suddenly appeared on Jiang Rui's face. She actually forgot her strengths. In Ping'an residence, she was almost always cooking, and this was what she was good at. This strength didn't seem so great, but it was essential. People had to eat every day. She had the best kitchen in Xanadu. The women and children here would definitely like her. Thank you, Xiaoqian. Jiang Rui thanked her. Will there be no space for me? Xia Shui waited for a long time, and she was anxious. Super Xiaoqian smiled. Sister Xiao Shui, of course, there is your exclusive arrangement. You and Uncle Lu have your own room and your own office. You can handle the work of Rema Group in the office. Che, brother, you're biased, Xia Shui said with dissatisfaction. You give the sisters-in-law such a good exclusive space, but I only have an office. Charlotte smiled and said, Don't make a fuss. Can't you get someone to build whatever you like? Then I will join the sisters-in-law's Spicy Mom Special Agent Bureau. You can give the office to the man. Xia Shui said, Anyway, I'm going to be a mother. I'm also a spicy mom. Okay, we welcome you to join. Liang Xiao said. Long Bing said, We will hand over the collected information to Innings 101. This is also a contribution to the country. I agree. Tang Yuyin said. Then what are you waiting for? Super Xiaoqian said, Go and pack your luggage. Tomorrow morning, we will call Rema Group and fly to Xanadu in the Family One plane. Well, I won't tell you that the Family One plane has the combat functions of the Hades fighter and Kuan Peng bomber. It is the safest and most powerful plane in the world. It won't be a problem to kill a few F-35s. Fan punched Charlotte. Honey, it's not that exaggerated. The Air Force, one of the President of the United States, doesn't have combat functions. Our family's plane can kill a few F-35s. This is too exaggerated. Charlotte said, It's related to your safety. It's not exaggerated at all. I'm going to pack my luggage. Shinda Tianin couldn't wait. I'm going too. Liang Xiao also got up. Charlotte also got up. I'll help you. The moonlight was as gentle as water. Liang Xiao and Shinda Tianin walked side by side, talking and laughing, leaving the man behind them aside. When they were about to reach Liang Xiao's room, Charlotte suddenly said, Ouch, I think there's a bug in my eye. It hurts. Help me take a look and blow it out. Liang Xiao and Shinda Tianin also turned around and said in unison, Which eye? There's one in both eyes. Hurry up and blow it out for me. It hurts. Charlotte looked very uncomfortable. Liang Xiao moved closer to Charlotte's left eye and looked at Charlotte's eyes with all her attention, looking for the bug in them. Shinda Tianin moved closer to Charlotte's right eye and also looked for the bug in it with all her attention. They didn't notice at all that Charlotte's eyes were quickly turning black. Shinda Tianin and Liang Xiao were stunned and didn't move. They couldn't hear what Charlotte said. A few minutes later, Charlotte's eyes returned to normal. Liang Xiao punched Charlotte and said, What bug? You're lying. Shinda Tianin also said, I didn't see any bug either. Charlotte carefully observed the two women's reactions. He removed the deep hypnosis from them and let their brains return to normal. However, he didn't erase their memories of the time they spent together. Liang Xiao and Shinda Tianin looked at each other. At that moment, there was a slight change in their eyes, but that was all. Then, the two women looked at each other and smiled. This smile made Charlotte heave a sigh of relief, because in his view, Liang Xiao must be confused, but during this period of time, they were like sisters and had subtly changed her. The prejudice that Liang Xiao had against Shinda Tianin had long been replaced by the accumulation of family affection. Time will erase everything, including the conflicts between women. During this period of time, they lived together, and they had a child to act as a lubricant, so what conflicts could they not erase? Aren't you going to help us pack? Hurry up and go, Liang Xiao said. Yes, you said it, Shinta Tianyin said with a smile. Got it. I'm going now. Xiaolei left happily. The two women looked at Charlotte's back and were stunned for a long time. Liang Xiao suddenly said, I don't know why, but I have a strange feeling. I have it too, but I can't tell what it is. Shinta Tianyin said. Forget it, don't worry about it. Liang Xiao said with a smile. We are a family, and that's the most important thing. Shinta Tianyin hugged Liang Xiao and said, We are a family. Walking forward, Charlotte's eyes were a little moist. This is my last arrangement. Chapter 1289. The afternoon sun was lazy. The Himalayas were bathed in the sun, and the white snow exuded a holy brilliance. The mountains rose and fell in a myriad of shapes. This spectacular scenery stretched forward under the blue sky and white clouds, as if it reached the end of the world. However, this was ironic, because only in this deserted place could nature protect her most beautiful side. A plane that looked like both a civil plane and a fighter plane swooped down from the blue sky and landed on the runway of Xanadu. The gangway of the plane was lowered, and the mistresses of the Xia family dragged their children out of the cabin. When they came to the ground, facing the spectacular golden Himalayas, they seemed to have changed into the state of young girls, all of them cheering and laughing. Charlotte dragged a few large suitcases and got off the plane in a slightly embarrassed manner. However, seeing his wife and children so happy, he was willing to be tired. For sacred cows flew together to help Charlotte drag his luggage, but they all seemed to be well-behaved, hiding their little secret with Charlotte very well. Qianjun, Akiko Tsukino, and the others brought some people over to pick them up. Behind them was a large group of fully armed elite armed personnel from the Rescue Association. The scene was very grand. It was as if a country's army was welcoming their leader and his wife. Akiko Tsukino looked at Charlotte with hot eyes, suppressing her longing for him. After all, Charlotte's wives were all here. She looked at Charlotte, and Charlotte also looked at her, and he was looking at her pair of particularly full breasts. He had turned Giovanna and the other three into cows and drank their sacred milk every day. How could he miss the ninja milk of Japan? Let's go. I can't wait to see my room, Fan said. Liang Xiao said to her, Strange, why didn't Xiaoqian say a big room? We have a big room in Peace House. Fan blushed. Are you talking about the room where we sleep with our husband? Liang Xiao nodded. Yes, it's that kind of room. It's very, very big, and there's also a very, very big bed. Screw you. Fan punched Liang Xiao. Why do you need a room like that? The children are getting bigger and bigger. If they still act recklessly like they did in Ping and Residence, they're dead meat if they're found out. Liang Xiao nodded and said, Yeah, it's best not to have that kind of room. However, at this moment, Super Xiaoqian appeared between the two women and said in a soft voice, Of course there is. It was personally designed by Master. It's super gorgeous and warm. You'll definitely like it. Well, he didn't let me tell you, so I told you in secret. Fan and Liang Xiao turned around and glared at Charlotte at the same time, while Charlotte glared at Super Xiaoqian. With his hearing, no matter how low Super Xiaoqian lowered her voice, he could still hear it. Long Bing, Jiang Rui, and Shinta Tianyin chatted as they walked. The three women talked about the children and seemed very intimate. At the sight of this, Xiaolei could not help but reveal a smile at the corner of his lips. Last night, not only did he remove the deep hypnosis in Liang Xiao's brain, he also removed the deep hypnosis in Fan, Long Bing, and Jiang Rui's brains. The only one who didn't do anything was Tang Yuyan, because he didn't hypnotize her at all. She and Shinta Tianyin had always been on good terms, so there was no need for him to hypnotize her to get close to Shinta Tianyin. Now, it seemed that what he did back then was right. After spending some time together, Liang Xiao, Fan, Long Bing, Jiang Rui, and Shinta Tianyin had subconsciously accepted each other. With the children acting as a lubricant, they had also cultivated the kinship that only family members would have. Therefore, after he removed the deep hypnosis that targeted them, the previous conflict had actually been erased by the feelings that had been cultivated during this period of living together. In other words, time had helped him solve his biggest problem, and he had only done something slightly. This result was good for him. It was also good for Shinatianin, Liang Xiao, and the others. Yelena took Liang Xiao, the others and the children to see their rooms, and Giovanna and the others dragged their suitcases to accompany them all the way. Charlotte and Akiko, Sakino slowed down and walked behind the team. "That," Charlotte whispered. "Wait for me in the woods behind later. I have something to talk to you about." Akiko Tsukino's cheeks suddenly flushed, and she responded softly. From her shy and excited reaction, it was obvious that she was thinking about something else. But it was normal for her to think of something. As soon as Charlotte came, he asked her to wait for him in the woods behind. What else could it be? In fact, Charlotte had no choice. In this place, it was almost impossible for him to buy a large amount of milk from the market, and he needed a large amount of milk. Moreover, after drinking milk for a long time, he had long discovered that the quality of the milk bought from the market was not as good as the milk that he had personally hypnotized. The best quality was actually the first milk of women like Giovanna, Stella, Rosa, and Teresa, who had never given birth before. The quality and effect of their milk was even better than the milk of his wives. Therefore, he needed Akiko Tsukino's milk. Akiko Tsukino's milk was the same as the milk of the 4 female knights. They were all women who had never given birth before. In fact, there was another woman in the Zodiac battle team who was a high-quality source of milk, and that was Yelena. But she was Angumi Khan's girlfriend, which was not suitable, so he excluded her. "Boss, let me help you with your backpack." Angumi Khan turned around with a flattering smile on his face. He had actually deliberately come to listen to what Charlotte and Akiko Tsukino were talking about. Charlotte said, "No, the things inside are very important. I can carry it myself." His backpack contained a radiation-resistant alloy box, a crystal skull, and the box of the world. In addition, this time he had also brought the armor that he had obtained from the Knight's Hospital. But that thing could not be carried in the backpack, so he put in a large suitcase and let Giovanna personally carry it. "Okay then." Angumi Khan shrugged. "By the way, boss, Akiko has missed you a lot these days and has no appetite. It's good that you came this time to accompany her and let her eat more." These words were very normal, but Charlotte heard something else, which made him feel embarrassed. Akiko Tsukino glared at Angumi Khan. "Damn monkey, if you say one more word, my sword won't recognize you." With a clang, Akiko Tsukino's katana slipped out of the scabbard, and the cold air was threatening. "I'm doing this for your own good." "Okay, pretend that I said nothing." Angumi Khan closed his mouth and then left. The women and children all settled down. The Xia family's mistresses liked this place very much, and so did the children. The children who could run ran around the room, playing hide-and-seek, chasing, and frolicking. Xia Yang, Xia Yu, and Xia Dawang, who could not run, were also carried by Shinatianin and Tang Yuyan. They looked around and beamed with joy. After strolling for a while, the women arrived in front of an antique door. "This house is so big," Jiang Rui exclaimed. "What is this house used for? Is it a dining room or a multi-purpose conference room?" Fan was very curious. "I think it's a multi-purpose conference room." Long Bing said, "Isn't it tiring to guess? Won't you know when you open it?" Liang Xiao pushed the door open. The door opened, and a spacious room came into the women's sight. But at that moment, they were all stunned because it was a bedroom, a super bedroom. The bed placed under the front wall of the room was 20 square meters, which would definitely be a room in an ordinary person's home. What was even more strange was that the bedding on the bed was also specially made, and it was even bigger than the bed. The women all knew that it was definitely not the bed that the giants slept in, but the bed that their husbands slept in with them. Such a big bed was enough to sleep the 6 of them and Charlotte. However, not only was there a big bed, but there was also an indoor swimming pool. It was filled with water, and the water was so clear that the bottom could be seen. At a glance, they could see the wave-making facilities in the swimming pool. Obviously, this would be an interesting and storied indoor swimming pool. Mom, what a big and beautiful room. Let's live in this room from now on, Liang Jiayu said in a childish voice. This room is for me and Mom. Xiaolong wanted to fight with Liang Jiayu. Long Bing and Liang Xiao looked at each other awkwardly, not knowing how to explain. Fortunately, Fan Fan was quick-witted. This is your dad's practice room, not a bedroom. Mom, what does dad practice? Xiao Fan asked. Fan Fan blushed. It must be related to the bed, or else there wouldn't be such a big bed. Second brother, you're so stupid, Xia Jianghe said. Jiang Rui hurriedly carried Xia Jianghe. Let's go somewhere else, not your dad's practice room. The other women also hurriedly led their children away, not letting them make wild guesses. Shinda Tianyin was also embarrassed. She walked with Tang Yuyin. Are we really going to sleep together? I don't even want to think about it. Tang Yuyin smiled. I wasn't used to it first, but after the first time, I felt it wasn't bad and slowly got used to it. I know you're shy, but you should try it. Maybe you'll like it. We're a family, after all. That way, it'll actually make our family more united. However, Shinda Tianyin shook her head. I don't even dare to think about it. It's too embarrassing. She paused for a moment, and her attitude changed slightly. However, I feel that what you said is reasonable. If that's the case, our family will indeed be better and more united, but I can't do it. Tang Yuyin moved closer to Shinda Tianyin's ear and whispered, Let him touch you at night. I'll come over to accompany you and let you get used to it. Shinda Tianyin was speechless. Tang Yuyin suddenly looked around. All right, we were busy looking at the house. Where did that guy go? Shinda Tianyin also looked around, but she didn't see Charlotte. Where did Daddy go? Xia Yang suddenly asked. Shinda Tianyin was shocked. Yang, you can speak? Speak. It was Xia Yu's voice. Shinda Tianyin was so excited that her body trembled slightly, and she covered her mouth with one hand. Tang Yuyin looked envious. Your child should be the smartest. My Tawang can't speak yet. That's not necessarily true. Tawang, call me Lunyang. Shinda Tianyin moved closer to Xia Tawang's stroller and teased him. Ha ha ha. Xia Tawang laughed. Did you see that? Tang Yuyin asked. Children speak early and late. This has nothing to do with intelligence, Shinda Tianyin said, but she was secretly delighted. She seemed to have understood something because of this. She nudged Tang Yuyin with her elbow. Are you serious about what you said just now? What you said? Tang Yuyin smiled. Of course I'm serious. Shinda Tianyin nodded. Then, I'm counting on you. Tang Yuyin smiled and said, We're family, and both of us married Charlotte in the end. Why are you being so polite? But just as the two women were whispering, their man had already quietly slipped out of the Xanadu and came to the forest behind. Chapter 1290. The forest was quiet, and the ground was covered with thick leaves and some unmelted ice and snow. However, it all looked very clean and natural. Akiko Tsukino stood under a tree, wearing a snow-white kimono and a pair of wooden clogs. The wide kimono diluted the wonderful curves of her body, but it added a bit of classical beauty to her. Her eyebrows were drawn long and curved, which was particularly charming. She had a little lipstick on her cherry lips, which was a traditional Japanese lipstick. It was just a little round, and it made her mouth look even smaller and cuter. Akiko Tsukino also looked very clean, like a magnolia blooming in this forest. Without waiting for Charlotte to greet her, Akiko Tsukino bowed deeply to Charlotte. This was just a simple action, but when she did it, it gave people a sense of beauty that came from time and space. It would make people wonder if this was the era of Oda Nobunaga, or an even older era. Charlotte smiled. Why are you dressed so formally? Bow to me. We don't need to be so polite between us. Akiko Tsukino said, When there are others, of course I won't be polite to you, but when it's just the two of us, you are my man, and I have to fulfill my responsibility as a wife, let you see my most beautiful side, and try my best to serve you. Charlotte was the first man in her life, and would also be the last man, so in her heart, she treated Charlotte as her husband. And she was an extremely traditional Japanese woman who believed in the way of the samurai. In Japan, women respected men. It's up to you as long as you like it. Charlotte changed the topic. Akiko, I called you here because I want you to do me a favor. What can I do for you? Akiko Tsukino asked. Charlotte was a little embarrassed. I want you to give me milk. Akiko Tsukino was stunned for a moment. Give me milk? Charlotte nodded. Yes, give me milk. I didn't give birth to a child at all. How can I give you milk? Akiko Tsukino looked confused. Charlotte said, Don't worry about anything else. You just need to promise me. I'll do the rest. That is it now? Akiko Tsukino's cheeks were slightly red. Yes, now, said Charlotte. Akiko Tsukino suddenly grabbed the front of her kimono and pulled it to the left and right. Suddenly, two towering snowy peaks appeared in the canyon. Charlotte was stunned for a moment. That's not what I meant. You haven't promised me yet. Akiko Tsukino said, It's not our first time doing it. I promised you a long time ago. Charlotte smiled bitterly. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the milk. Akiko Tsukino said seriously, How can I give birth to a child if I don't do it? How can I give birth to a child if I don't give birth to a child? Although I haven't read many books, you can't lie to me about this kind of thing, right? Charlotte didn't know how to continue the conversation. He smiled bitterly again and again. Akiko Tsukino walked towards Charlotte. She had been lonely for too long. How could she let go of such an opportunity to be alone with him? Promise me first, Charlotte said. Akiko Tsukino smiled and nodded. I promise you. I promise you anything. Isn't that enough? Charlotte's eyes quickly darkened. Really? I really have milk. The female ninja's voice was full of horror. What's going on? What happened? Don't worry. I just hypnotize your body and let your body enter the breastfeeding period. Charlotte explained. I need your milk to become stronger. You know, my body has evolved ahead of time. You don't have to explain to me. I'm willing to do anything for you. Not to mention milk, I'm willing to die. Akiko Tsukino turned into Charlotte's arms. Charlotte's heart was moved. Thank you, Akiko. Akiko Tsukino's eyes looked as if she wanted to swallow Charlotte whole into her stomach. Her voice also had a hint of provocation. I feel uncomfortable there. Don't you want milk? Hurry up and eat it. Only then did Charlotte come back to his senses. He leaned over, but he was very clear in his heart. He ate her food, so he had to give her something. There was no such thing as free milk in this world. An hour later, Charlotte left the woods. As he walked, he burped with the fragrance of milk. The reserve of Japanese female ninjas was amazing. One was equivalent to 2 female knights. You really can't judge a book by its cover. However, this matter was not decided by the face. It was decided by the chest. The chest of a Japanese female ninja was much bigger than that of Giovanna. A bigger size meant a bigger reserve. It was not until a few minutes after Charlotte left that Akiko Tsukino came out of the woods. The extremely skilled Japanese female ninja no longer had the slightest bit of agility in her walking. She was limping as if she was walking very hard. She asked for it, but she was happy to do it. Back at Shangri-La, Charlotte carried his bag and his suitcase into an underground secret room. This secret room was requested by him and designed by him. Without his permission, even his wife could not enter. There was only one reason for such a rule. He wanted to put the world box and the crystal skull in this underground secret room. Until now, he still had not figured out why other people who touched the world box would either die or go crazy, but he was the only one who was not affected. Before he figured out this secret, he did not dare to let his wife and children come close. The secret room was empty, except for a huge safe. This safe was also designed by him. It needed to be checked with his fingerprint and pupils before it could be opened. And if others wanted to open it, they would need Super Shaoqian to provide a dynamic password, which was simply impossible. In this world, the person who could find a loophole and deceive Super Shaoqian had not been born yet. Charlotte took out all the things in his backpack and suitcase and put them on a workbench without any equipment. In the past, when he studied the ancient alloy fragments, he would always have a lot of scientific research equipment in his basement. But now he did not need any scientific research equipment because there was no scientific research equipment in this world that could crack the secret of the world box and the crystal skull. The secret of the world box and the crystal skull did not exist in this world at all. They were in another world. Xiao Lei had such a guess in the past, but he couldn't be sure. It wasn't until he used that method to defeat Isatab and stole that memory from her brain that he was sure of it. Now it seemed that it was no wonder that the only prehistoric person, Keisha Ruiz, could not solve the secret of the world box after such a long time. Because the clues and answers to solve the secret were not in this world. How could he solve it? After quietly sorting out his thoughts, Charlotte's eyes moved to the silver armor that he snatched from the Knight's Hospitaller. The silver armor was full of cracks, and a small piece of the helmet had been cut off, leaving a small hole. Although it was not very obvious, Charlotte knew its existence, so he saw it at a glance. The silver armor was motionless in his field of vision, exuding an ancient and mysterious aura. The X-Secret Gold Project was successful because of this armor. China's military strength soared like a rocket to the top of the world. This kind of arrogant height, in fact, was also due to this armor. However, Charlotte was very clear that what he imitated was not the real metal that made up the armor. It was missing that glittering substance that could not be replicated. That substance could be energy, or it could be a rare mineral from another world. There was no material that could be replicated in this world. Looking at the tattered silver armor, Charlotte's brain had a new train of thought. Keisha Ruiz left behind a bronze grimoire. That bronze grimoire acted as a USB, and inside it was an audio file. The language he used was not the language of this world, but wait. Thinking of this, a ray of light suddenly flashed in Charlotte's mind. That ray of light seemed to dispel a fog. In a memory that I stole from Isatab's brain, Isatab also used that language, and the person hidden in the white light used another language. I can't understand it at all. If Keisha Ruiz is a prehistoric person of this world, then how could he use Isatab's language to tell me his story? Using the same language, the simplest explanation was that they were from the same race. Could it be that he has been lying to me all along? Has he been lying to me from the beginning? Is he from the same world as Isatab? This also explains why he did not do anything when Isatab planned to destroy this world. The more Charlotte thought about it, the more he felt that it was true. If everything that had happened was a trap, and everything that the prehistoric person said was a lie, then everything that he did and said was thrown away, then the prehistoric person only had one motive left. That's right, Isatab said something in the base at Incheon. She said that I am the chosen person, and I cannot escape my fate. Chosen? Who chose me? What is the condition of the chosen person? A single question led to a whole bunch of questions. Charlotte's thoughts started to get messy. Today was already the 20th day, but he only had 19 days left. After 19 days, he would have to face the end of his life and accept the so-called fate that he could not walk out of until now. If he died like this, then it would be a muddled death. He was not willing at all. However, he only had this little time left. How could he decipher Keisha Ruiz's secret and his motive? It was not that the hope was slim, but that there was no hope at all. Beep, 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 beep. The satellite phone suddenly rang. This underground secret room had a signal connection. Charlotte could even use his hacker's computer to work here. After the 5th ring, Charlotte took out the satellite phone from his pocket. He glanced at the number, then slid the answer button. Akiko, what's the matter? If there's too much milk, you can squeeze it out and put in a bottle. I will come to get it tonight. No. Akiko Tsukino's voice was on the other end. Boss, your father is here. Charlotte was stunned on the spot. He wants to see you. Come out and see him. Akiko Tsukino hung up the phone. Charlotte was still standing there. He did not come back to his senses for a long time. Chapter 1291. Xiao Changhe came, but he was blocked outside the back door of the Xanadu base. The people who blocked him were 4 female knights from the Rescue Society and dozens of elite armed men from the Rescue Society. The 4 female knights and the elite armed men from the Rescue Society were all armed with Gale assault rifles. The members of the Zodiac Squad stood behind the armed men from the Rescue Society. They didn't pull out their guns, they just stood there. They even avoided their father's sight, not daring to face him. The armed men of the Rescue Society could deal with Xia Changhe as an intruder, but the members of the Zodiac Squad couldn't. They had all been adopted and trained by Xia Changhe. Without Xia Changhe, they wouldn't be where they were today. Therefore, even if Xia Changhe did something to hurt them, they couldn't really treat him as an enemy. With dozens of guns pointed at him, Xia Changhe's face didn't have the slightest expression. He stood outside the door, and it was frighteningly quiet. When Charlotte came out, he saw his father, Xia Changhe. At that moment, his heart was filled with complicated feelings. He walked to the door, his steps a little heavy. The members of the Zodiac Squad looked over, their eyes full of worry. "You can all go," Charlotte said. "I'll handle it." But Giovanna looked very worried. "Go, it'll be fine," Charlotte said. Giovanna waved her hand. "You can all go." Only then did the elite armed men of the Rescue Association withdraw. The members of the Zodiac Squad also left, leaving only the father and son, Charlotte and Xia Changhe, at the door. Charlotte looked at Xia Changhe and was silent for a long time before saying, "What are you doing here?" Xia Changhe said, "Didn't you want me to see my grandson and granddaughter? I'm here now. Come with me." Charlotte walked out of the door, then walked along the wall of Xanadu to a deserted place. Xia Changhe followed Charlotte and said, "Don't you want me to come in and sit?" Charlotte stopped at a place and turned to face Xia Changhe. "I don't have much time left. Tell me, who are you? I don't want to die without knowing what kind of person my father was." Xia Changhe remained silent and didn't say a word. He just looked at Charlotte without any expression on his face. "Tell me," Charlotte shouted at Xia Changhe, "if you still have me as your son in your heart, then tell me." Xia Changhe's gaze shifted to the sky. "If I don't tell you, you will still recognize me as your father in your heart. If I tell you, you will no longer see me as your father." Charlotte was momentarily stunned. This wasn't an answer, but it was an answer nonetheless. "But before I say anything, you must believe me. I'm doing all of this for your own good. I did do some things that weren't good for you, but I have my own difficulties." Xia Changhe said, "Then tell me, I am not your father." Charlotte suddenly froze and felt that his heart had stopped beating. In his memory, although Xia Changhe wasn't a good father, he was still his father. He disappeared, he appeared, and no matter what he did, he accepted him. But he couldn't accept this answer. Sometimes people were like this. They wanted to know a certain answer, but after getting the answer, they regretted it. Sometimes being a little muddle-headed was actually a good thing. There was no need to live so clearly and cleverly. "Are you satisfied?" A bitter smile appeared on the corner of Xia Changhe's mouth. This was his first emotional reaction since he came here, but it only lasted for a second before his face became expressionless again. "Then who is my father? Who is my mother? And Xia Shui, she?" Charlotte bit his lip. "Is she my sister?" Xia Changhe shook his head. "She isn't your sister. The mother in your memory is her mother, not your mother. When I married her, she was already pregnant with Xia Shui. Her father was a college student. He was afraid of responsibility and abandoned her. I entered her life. I accepted the child in her belly, and she accepted you. I married her because you needed a normal identity. Later, I killed her because she was a hidden danger to me." Charlotte clenched his fists, and his knuckles made a cracking sound. The man in front of him did such a heartless thing, but he could still tell in front of him like a story without a trace of guilt. His heart was burning with anger. He couldn't wait to rush up and beat him up. "You want to beat me? Then why are you still standing? You can beat me up if it will make you feel better." Xia Changhe said. In the end, Xia Lei managed to suppress the anger in his heart. "If I beat him up, will that kind woman come back to life? Will the injury that Xia Shui suffered disappear? It can't." He took a deep breath and said, after calming down a little, "Don't tell Xia Shui the truth. She has always regarded you as her father. I don't want her to lose her mother, and now she loses her father. You can disappear, you can die, but the part of you as a father will live in her memory. That is all she has left." Xia Changhe nodded. "I promise you. You haven't answered my question yet. Who are my biological parents? Xia Changhe was silent again. Answer me. Charlotte couldn't control his emotions again. Is this question difficult for you? Answer me. Xia Changhe shrugged. I actually want to tell you. You have the right to know the answer. You should know the answer, but I don't know. How can I tell you? Charlotte was stunned on the spot. Even Xia Changhe doesn't know. What is this situation? Xia Changhe said, this is the answer. I know you don't believe it, and you can't accept it, but this is the truth. Charlotte sneered. Then how did you find me? I can't grow from the ground, right? I can't fall from the sky, right? Xia Changhe took out a box from his pocket. It was a very simple wooden box. It was full of dirt and looked very old. At the moment when Xia Changhe took out the box, Charlotte instinctively used his X-ray vision, but he was surprised to find that he couldn't see what was inside the box. Xia Changhe opened the box, and a dark cyan compass emerged from the box. It was very old, but the tightness of the compass was amazing. There was a needle on the compass, pointing straight at Charlotte. Charlotte instinctively moved sideways, but the needle on the compass caught him again, still pointing straight at him. This compass looked similar to the one he had repaired, which was the one he had used to find the fragment of the world box, but looked more intricate and mysterious. Charlotte had never seen this compass before. His heart was full of surprise and speculation. What is it? Why am I pointing at me? Xia Changhe said, this is the answer you want. What are you talking about? Are you hinting that this box gave birth to me? You bastard. Charlotte lost control of his emotions again. Of course it won't give birth to life. It's just looking for life. Xia Changhe tossed the box containing the compass to Charlotte. Back then, I used this to find you. How did it find me? Because you were the chosen one. The chosen one. Isadabu had said the same thing. What chosen one? I don't know. I'm just a lowly executor. Xia Changhe avoided Charlotte's gaze. You have your fate, and I have mine. Back then, I took this compass and followed it to the rooftop of a residential building. I found you on the rooftop. You were naked. There were no clothes, no blood, and you were very clean. Later, I investigated everyone in that area. No one gave birth at that time, and no one abandoned their child. An image appeared in Charlotte's mind. The sky was filled with twinkling stars, and a fair and chubby boy was lying on the rooftop of an old residential building. But this was not the answer he wanted at all. This was a mystery that was difficult to solve. You'll find the answer, but not from me. Xia Changhe's voice brought Charlotte's thoughts back to reality. Why do you say I am the chosen one? What chose me? Charlotte raised a new question. Xia Changhe looked up at the sky and mumbled, I want to understand too. After a pause, he said, so I searched the world for the answer. I went to Israel, I went to Italy, and my footprints were all over the world. I went to all the places I could think of, and I found some things. That crystal skull was my reward. I know it belongs to you, and no one else can take it away. So, if you really want an answer, I think it's it, but that's just my guess. You mean the crystal skull? Xia Changhe said, yes, that's it. But I didn't dare to get close to it at all. Once I got close, I would have terrible hallucinations, and my brain would be controlled by it. After Qianjun discovered the underground pyramid on the outskirts of Jerusalem, I took a few people in. We found the crystal skull at the top of the pyramid. I asked people to take it down, but the people who went up jumped down and died. That was because the crystal skull controlled their brains. I didn't want to give up. Later, I found a secret passage. I asked people to climb up from the passage and try to take it down again. But you know what? The people I sent up took out their guns and killed themselves. After that, I also received a warning. I couldn't control my hand and took the gun to my head, but it didn't kill me in the end. Later, I asked Qianjun to blow up the entrance of the pyramid and sealed it, waiting for you to take it. Charlotte said, what makes you think I can take it? Also, you said that you were looking for the answer all over the world. What clues are you based on? Chapter 1292. Aren't you holding in your hand? Xia Changhe said. Charlotte's gaze moved to the wooden box in his hand. The compass in the box was pointing at him. He took the compass out of the box, but there were no words on it. Xiaolei was suddenly reminded of the compass he repaired. Wasn't this compass the reason why he was able to find the fragment of the Box of Worlds? But that compass had the words Emperor Yongle at the bottom, which was completely different from the one in his hand. He couldn't guess where this compass came from, let alone who made it. Xiao Changhe said, "There's no need to guess, I can tell you. The compass you fixed back then was made by Aisatabu. In order to fool people, she added Emperor Yongle's words on the compass. Princess Yongmei was indeed a princess of the Ming dynasty, but she became Aisatabu's clothes several hundred years ago. What happened after that, whether it was the city of the White Han tribe's city of the White Horse of Tomorrow, or the expedition to the holy city of Jerusalem, none of it had anything to do with Emperor Yongle or Princess Yongmei." Charlotte put the compass back in a box. "Then how did it give you clues?" "I went wherever the needle pointed." "That's it." Charlotte didn't really believe it. Xiao Changhe's lips curled into a bitter smile. "You might not believe me, but when I was with it, sometimes I would hear some strange sounds. It was a mysterious language that I couldn't understand. But every time I heard those sounds, it was like my brain had downloaded something, and I would have some dreams when I was sleeping. It was a very strange feeling. It's hard for me to explain it to you. It was like the kind of dream that people talk about, hearing sounds, but not understanding them. But the brain would remember those sounds, and then decompress them into dreams when sleeping." This was what Xiao Changhe said. But how absurd and strange was this? "I know you won't believe it, but this is the truth." Xiao Changhe said, "Can you describe that sound?" "I can't learn it, but I think it sounds like a dolphin sometimes." Charlotte's body trembled. It sounded like the sound of a dolphin. In the memory he had stolen from Aisatabu's brain, he had also heard a mysterious language. One or two of the syllables sounded like the sound of a dolphin. It was very sharp. "How many times did you hear it?" Charlotte asked excitedly. He seemed to have touched something. Xiao Changhe smiled bitterly. "About a dozen times in total. Sometimes it's once every few decades. Sometimes it's once in 100 years. Charlotte was dumbfounded. Xiao Changhe said calmly, "I know your next question, and I can tell you the answer. I'm here to say goodbye to you. This is the last time we'll see each other. Before I go, I will tell you everything I know." Charlotte was still calculating his age. With his brain, he could calculate the result in an instant, but he couldn't help but repeat the calculation over and over again, because it was impossible. Xiao Changhe continued, "I'm a person from the year 1400. I'm probably the oldest Han person in the world, over 600 years old. When I was young, Zhu Di was still alive. I was Princess Yongmei's bodyguard. When I was young, I was very handsome and could write some poems. At that time, I could be considered an all-rounder. Princess Yongmei liked me very much as a bodyguard. She would always bring me along when she went out to play or study. After a long time, we developed feelings for each other and became a couple. That was also the happiest time of my life. The Aisatabu you saw was Princess Yongmei. She was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. What do you think?" Charlotte nodded. When he first saw Aisatabu's afterimage, he was also shocked. We carefully interacted with each other, not daring to let anyone find out. In that era, if a bodyguard slept with a princess, his crime would be enough to kill his entire family. What was laughable was that Emperor Yongle of the Ming dynasty didn't discover my relationship with Princess Yongmei, but our good times were suddenly gone. I don't know when it started, but I noticed that Princess Yongmei's temperament changed greatly. She didn't have any of the gentleness and intimacy she had before. She didn't even let me touch her hand. My status was low. At that time, I thought that she was tired of playing with me and wanted to end our underground relationship. If I wanted to end it, so be it. That was because I felt that if this continued, someone would eventually find out one day. At that time, the imperial family would definitely kill my entire family. I couldn't let my family be implicated just to satisfy my desires. Thus, I dealt with it coldly, no longer expressing my love for her, and also reduced my contact with her. One day, Princess Yongmei told Zhu Di a story about immortality. She said that there was a kind of medicine that could make people immortal, and she was willing to search for the medicine for Zhu Di, just like Su Fu of the Qin dynasty. Zhu Di was very moved, so he agreed. After obtaining Zhu Di's permission, Princess Yongmei chose several thousand elite soldiers to carry provisions and began a journey to search for the medicine. As for me, I was among them. At that time, I was secretly happy because I felt that after leaving the Ming Dynasty, I would have a chance to be together with her. Reality proved that I was wrong. She was no longer that Princess Yongmei. During the march, I took advantage of an opportunity when there was no one around her to summon my courage and grab her hand. She flew into a rage and kicked me out her tent. That kick of hers sent me flying more than 10 meters away. I broke 2 ribs and almost died. It was from that kick that I was certain that she wasn't the Princess Yongmei in my heart. That was because Princess Yongmei was a gentle and weak woman who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. How could she have the strength to send a martial artist like me flying more than 10 meters away? Fortunately, she didn't pursue the matter, and I survived with the help of my comrades. After that, I didn't dare to express goodwill to her again. I didn't dare to touch her body. I distanced myself from her line of sight, but I didn't give up on my observations. Gradually, I discovered her secret. She ate people, but she didn't eat their flesh. Instead, she drank their souls. However, she didn't eat the soldiers, but the commoners along the way. After discovering this secret, I was extremely afraid. I thought of running away, but every time I thought of running away, I would think of Princess Yongmei, that beautiful woman who didn't care about my lowly status and devoted herself to me. I wanted revenge. I wanted to find that demon's weakness. I wanted to wait for an opportunity. The troops finally arrived at the land of today's White Han tribe. Afterwards, we arrived at Afghanistan, which is the land of today's White Han tribe. There, she found a few fragments, but I didn't know what those fragments were used for. I originally planned to steal those fragments, but before I could do anything, those who came into contact with the fragments first went crazy and then died one by one. I had no choice but to give up on the idea of stealing those fragments and continue to lie in wait for an opportunity. Those fragments seemed to have affected her as well. For a period of time, she also became crazy, and her entire person seemed very weak. I thought that the opportunity to kill her and avenge the princess had arrived, but she was really too strong. Even when she was at her weakest, I didn't dare to act rashly because I only had one chance. If I made a mistake, I would die. However, she survived my hesitation. My ideal opportunity didn't appear in the end, but she made a decision. She wanted to build a city, and the army that followed her on the expedition was named the Black Moon Army. This was a name that was as evil as her. Afterwards, she decided to make a trip to Jerusalem, and as the most elite bodyguard, I was also part of the team that followed her. On the way to Jerusalem, I finally discovered that she was using a compass to find the fragments. That compass was the one that you repaired later on, and it once again led you to those fragments. We arrived at Jerusalem. At that time, the kingdom of Jerusalem had already fallen, and the holy city of Jerusalem was in the hands of the Muslims. After we entered Jerusalem, she could use her eyes to find the ancient tombs underground and find what she wanted. As a reward, she would sometimes have us dig up an ancient tomb and then take away the burial goods. One day, under her instructions, we dug up Baldwin IV's tomb and obtained a large amount of precious jewels. The string of divine stars that you gave to Shindatianin was actually something that I took from Baldwin IV's tomb. In the end, we arrived at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I still remember her expression at that time. She was very agitated. She told us to kill those priests and Christians and dig up the Holy Sepulchre. We couldn't resist her orders, but just as we were about to do so, another demon-like existence appeared. She fought a great battle with him in Jerusalem, and both sides suffered heavy losses. It was also that bitter battle that completely shattered the illusions in my heart. I had no way of avenging Princess Yongmei in this life. If I continued to stay by that demonic woman's side, I wouldn't have a good end. While the two demons were fighting, I secretly escaped. I escaped from Jerusalem, but I didn't know where I should go. Returning to the Ming Dynasty was too far away. I couldn't cross those deserts and mountains alone, and I would die on the way. But if I stayed, I, a foreigner, couldn't blend in with the people here. I was lost, lonely, and helpless. Then, I don't know how, but I ended up in the barren hills of Jerusalem. Hearing this, Charlotte couldn't help but interrupt Xia Chang'e. Is that where the pyramid in the mountains is? Xia Chang'e nodded. You found this box? Xia Chang'e said, No, I met another demon, the prehistoric chosen one, Kasia Ruiz. Charlotte was stunned. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.